Morning, everyone. I see that we have 22 participants and we are right now at 9 o'clock. I might wait 1 or 2 minutes just to allow anyone else to log on, and then we will officially call the meeting to order. All right. Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, September 9th, and this is the fall meeting of the Youth Development Council. I'd like to welcome you all to our meeting today, and I'd actually like to start off with introducing the new chair of the Youth Development Council. I've been grateful to hold this post for several years, and working with Brian and with the governor's office to find a truly wonderful replacement. I'm going to remain on the Youth Development Council, but as of today, I'd like to introduce Robin Johnson. Robin will be the new chair going forward. I'd like perhaps, Robin, if you could just say a little bit about yourself, and then Robin will officially call the meeting to order and begin with a land acknowledgement today. Robin, welcome.
Thank you so much, Celeste. Good morning, everyone. I'm Robin Johnson. I am currently the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Umpqua Bank. I've been in this particular role at the bank for a little over a year and a half. I want to say maybe a year and 3 quarters. And it's been an interesting time to be in the financial industry, which is essentially considered an essential service. So we've never really shut down, although those of us who are in kind of a back office role like myself, where the interface with customers is pretty low, have been working from home. So I've actually only been in my role and working in person with my fellow colleagues for the first 6 weeks of my job, and then we are all again sent home. Before this, I've been doing diversity and inclusion work for about 20 years now. And before this, I was with an organization called the Center for Equity and Inclusion, a DEI firm based out of Portland, Oregon, that really serves both across the country, but a little bit internationally when I was there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they've expanded since then. And before that, I was Governor Brown's inclusion policy advisor, and I had some years in state service as well. So I'm really excited to be with you all as a part of the Youth Development Council. Educationally, my background is in developmental psychology. I really thought I'd be doing DEI work in the education space. That was originally the intent, and then just as my career kind of took its twists and turns, I'm now for my first time in corporate America, but I have a deep heart for youth and want to see them succeed and want to be able to address and mitigate barriers, especially when it comes to disparities in the educational world and their experiences, so that hopefully all students can achieve a level of success in their journey. So I feel super fortunate to have been reached out by Brian and really welcomed so warmly by Celeste and others. So I'm excited to be here. It may be a little bit interesting on my end. I've had a hard time getting, we have firewalls here around what we're able to access. And Brian has really generously on the back end been trying to send me an annotated agenda so that I could pull up the land acknowledgement. So hopefully here I'm trying to open the document. Introducing myself, otherwise I think what I can say is I've been born and raised in the Portland metro area all my life, so I'm a lifelong Oregonian, and it's been really I'm just really excited to be able to be a part of this group and to co-partner with all of you for the advancement of really, I think, progressive and forward-thinking youth agenda moving forward. So with that, I am able to open the document. Thanks, Brian. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the land acknowledgement. So it says, I'd like to acknowledge the many tribes and bands who call Oregon their ancestral territory and honor the ongoing relationship between the land, plants, animals, and people indigenous to this place we now call home. We recognize the continued sovereignty of the 9 federally recognized tribes who have ties to this place and the subsequent bands within those tribes, and thank them for continuing to teach us how we might be better, how we might all be here together. And then just some reminders for everyone. If before you start speaking, you could say your name. I think we all heard the announcement that the meeting is now being recorded, but just another reminder. And that this is a formal advisory meeting of the state. If you are a member of the public and wish to comment, there is the public comment section of the agenda at the end of this meeting, and members of the public have up to 3 minutes to speak per person. If you would like to speak, please send a chat to Melissa Gallardo. Melissa, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And as you send that to Melissa, it's that so she's aware that you would like to speak at that time. Is there anything else I need to do? Again, thanks for your patience as I kind of get used to my role as chair and have a little bit of a script here.
I think that's perfect. And you got my name just right, Robin. Thank you. A great introduction, great start. And next on our agenda is just me taking roll call of the council. So I'll go ahead and do that. Pardon me. Zan Ojero.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. And Eric Cardella. Parasa Chanrami.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Janine Hartley.
Present. Good morning.
Celeste Jansen.
And
Robin Johnson.
Present.
Andy Leonard.
I'm here.
Tabidi Lewis. Good to see. Adrian Livingston.
Here.
Erica McAlpine. Christina McMahon.
Hi, I'm here on the telephone.
Christina, I'm trying to send a link to you. I'll do that just after roll. Thanks. Rafael Miller.
Present.
Marisela Ortega Guzman.
Present.
Jeff Parker.
I'm here.
Molly Rogers.
I'm here.
Diana Rojas. Andy Santana May. Karen Spencer.
I'm here.
Liz Thorne.
I'm here. Good morning.
Koi Vu. And Kiwi Wilson.
Present.
All right, that concludes our taking roll. I will do a count and let you know if we have a quorum, but it is, we do not have any votes scheduled for this meeting, but I will let you know one way or another if we have a quorum regardless. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks everybody for being here. Here we go again on another quarterly meeting via Zoom. I think we will be doing this. Well, obviously this time around, I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say it's probably likely that we'll do this in December, although we'll do our best to plan for an alternative, which might be in person, but given where things are standing with COVID and general government reopening, you know, we just want to make sure that folks are staying safe and healthy. So appreciate your willingness and ability to be with us in this virtual space. So just a couple of announcements from me, and then I'll sort of continue on with some updates regarding the YDC membership. I think you'll see a few new faces on the call. So you will get to meet some of our newest members here in just a few minutes. You met Robin, but we have a few other additions. This is just a quick staff update, and just want to acknowledge Ryan Shands. There he is at the bottom of my screen. I don't know where he is on other people's screens, but Ryan, who is our compliance monitor responsible for conducting visits to facilities around the state and ensuring that those facilities are compliant with the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act in terms of safety and sight and separation for young people, and who's been with the agency for nearly 10 years. He is going to be leaving us for a position with a national organization that actually provides technical assistance around a whole host of issues, including compliance monitoring and site inspections. So he's going to be able to bring his deep expertise, not only as he's done in our state, but to other jurisdictions across the country. So Ryan, we thank you for your commitment and service to our work and mission, the specific work you've done over the years, really bringing our work to, I mean, a new level, I think, around site inspections, facility inspections. And, you know, Ryan kind of came in and built the program as far as I understand it. His last day will be on the 20th of September. So we've got, you know, what is that? Another 9 or 10 days. I don't know how many business days are in that, but another week or so, a little bit more than a week and a half with Ryan on board. And he's just been a pleasure to work with, has made the transition smooth and really gone above and beyond to make everything work. So Ryan, we thank you. I guess I'll turn it over to you if you want to add anything, and then I'll mention a little bit about sort of the plan going forward. But Ryan, to you.
Yeah, hey, no, I appreciate that, Brian. Thanks a lot for your kind words. Yeah, so I know a lot of your faces, worked with you for many years. Haven't always been a part of your, you know, quarterly council agenda. I've been in the background doing compliance work. You're all doing the important work with grants and funding and making sure the kids have opportunities in their communities so they're not, you know, winding up in trouble. So, you know, it's been a pleasure working with the YDD and with all of you. And thank you, Brian. I'm sure you're going to fill them in on the plan, like you said, about who's taking my role and what's happening with that. If you need anything from me, I believe my last working day is going to be Friday, September 17th. The official day is September 20th, but that'll be the day I think I turn everything in. So, and I'll be working with the American Institute for Research with the Center for Coordinated Assistance to States.
Thanks, Ryan. Does anybody else want to jump in here? I see some notes in the chat. Ryan congratulating you and thanking you and wishing you the best. Anya, do you want to jump in, or other staff, other council members?
Well, of course. Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Ryan. This is probably your last Youth Development Council meeting for a while. I'm not ready to say goodbye yet or farewell, because I keep telling Ryan that he can run but cannot hide, since we will be requesting Center for Coordinated Assistance to states to provide that assistance to us by offering Ryan's expertise in his new role. But anyway, but joking aside, yes, we will be counting on your expertise in the future. But also, I just want to show to everybody, and to mostly you, Ryan, how much I really appreciate everything that you have done. And so when Ryan says that Brian said that Ryan built the system from scratch. It is absolutely true. We didn't have a compliance monitoring system at the time when Ryan came aboard. So it's a big accomplishment. So it's well deserved that he will be sharing his expertise with states across the nation. So thank you, Ryan, and good luck. And remember, we know where to find you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Anya. Anyone else? No pressure. We are getting together as a team at an outdoor location next week. I have met maybe one or two staff people at the YDD, to be clear. So we were like with Delta variant and all this stuff, we were like, oh, what should we do? So we're going to meet like masked and socially distant and totally safe for at least me, for the first time meeting some of the staff, most of the staff, but also as we'll send off for Ryan on Monday, the 13th at 3 p.m. on the Capitol Mall. So like if you are a council member and you happen to be in Salem, or you happen to be nearby, just driving by, and you see us, A, don't be surprised, but B, if you wanted to like, wave or say hi or something, we're going to meet in front of the public safety, public services building, PSB, at like 3, and then find a place to just be around each other and say our goodbyes and thanks to Ryan for, 45 to 60 minutes on Monday the 13th. So keep that in mind. I'm going to move on to the next step. If anybody wants to jump in and say something, or throw comments in the chat, or raise your hand, just let me know. The plan going forward, I'm excited to announce, is that Lindsay, there's Lindsay Schoonover. She's waving. She is going to be rotating into the compliance monitoring role for the next, let's call it, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many months, to kind of see if this is a role that she's interested in permanently, and to sort of give this a chance. I am super enthusiastic and excited. Frankly, Ryan's been helping to train and transition the responsibilities to Lindsay. So we really appreciate Lindsay stepping up to this new opportunity. I know she's been on a few visits. There's some visits on Monday morning, for example, with Portland Police Bureau. I'm going to try to pop into one of those just to get a little direct experience myself, but excited to have Lindsay in the role. And then after a period of several months, we'll then determine kind of a more permanent path forward, with the hope that Lindsay continues in that role. So we just are going to have I guess you might call it a little trial period here, and work through those steps on our end. And so then, because Lindsay is going to be transitioning into that role, we have somebody who you also may recognize as a new face. Tanasia Bishop is in a temporary role in an administrative assistant position that and taking on Lindsay's old responsibilities. And Lindsay's been doing a great job transitioning those to Tanasia. So we're excited to welcome Tanasia to her first Youth Development Council quarterly meeting. Some of you may have seen her on one of the Juvenile Justice Committee meetings, and there may be even folks, I don't know if Koivu is here or I'm only seeing like so many faces. So, but Tanasia has some experience working with a couple of our grantees, Urko being one of them. So I don't know, Tanasia, welcome. Do you want to say a few words?
Thank you for having me, and I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. All right, those are all the announcements. Well, any questions or comments? Okay, I'm gonna move to a quick YDC update regarding membership. I'm gonna share my screen, and then we'll do that. We've got a couple of updates until around 10:15, and then we're gonna have a break then. I think Jaime Arredondo, who's an outgoing council member, is gonna maybe here somewhere in the Zoom meeting, but Jaime has a story to tell, and he'll do that probably around 10:25 once we come back from our break. So just giving a little preview. Jaime provides these I think really powerful and amazing stories and narratives kind of that remind us why we're here. So you just bear through some of the maybe potentially less somewhat mundane pieces, but Jaime is the one you want to look out for. There, I see, he says I'm here as a guest this time. So I'm gonna share screen. Give me a second to find the controls. Yes.
Brian, is this for the PowerPoint?
Yep.
I can share it if you would like.
I think I got it. I think I'm here. You're just gonna tell me in just a second if what you see is the right thing. Melissa, does that look correct? Are you like
Yes.
seeing like, yep.
Yep, that looks correct.
Right. So just an update. And again, some of you have heard this information. If you've read some of the updates that I've provided via email, this won't be new information, but want to welcome Robin as chair. Also introduce Raphael Miller, or Rafi, as a new member of the council. Erica McAlpine also is a new member. Erica is not, I think, on today's call. Something came up that she needed to, that she couldn't join us. Andy Santana May. I don't know if I saw that Andy was here or not, but the last person is Kiwi Wilson, who I did see on today's call. So maybe just sort of some quick introductions, self-introductions, probably better than me trying to manufacture something. So Kiwi, why don't we start with you? Do you just want to say a couple of words, wave to people, let them know you're here, say a little bit about who you are?
I'm Kiwi Wilson. I'm from Seattle, Washington, but I'm currently out here in Oregon. I go to college for juvenile justice. I also work on the ELC Emerging Leadership Committee, which is a program from the organization CJJ, Coalition of Juvenile Justice. So just helping, I like to help and reform the juvenile as a career. That's what I'm going for. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Kiwi. So happy to have you joining, obviously as a member, and also Kiwi was a part of our last youth committee meeting. And so Kiwi, just super excited to have you as a part of the council. Why don't we jump, is Andy on? Andy Santana May? Andy, I'm turning it to you. Sorry, I didn't see your photo, but I hear you're here.
It looks like Andy is not muted, but I can't hear you, Andy.
Yeah, I see you, Andy, now, but I don't see your face, but I see your
presence.
Your presence.
So there might be an audio output issue, maybe.
Audio issue.
Are you able to add anything to the chat, Andy?
Yeah, that'd be cool.
We'll keep an eye on that and maybe work on the audio behind the scenes if we can.
Exactly. Thank you, Melissa. So Andy, we'll come back to you. Oh, there he is. See him. Andy, now you're muted. I can maybe unmute you if you want help. He's working on it. There he is. Can't hear you though. Something's not working. Oh, now you're muted. Andy, something's going on with the audio. Some technical something. If you want to just throw maybe a couple of comments in the chat, Andy, why don't you do that? Thank you. And then we can come back to you once we get that figured out. But there's Andy. I'm excited to have Andy. Also was a part of our youth committee meeting just a few weeks ago. Super excited to have Andy joining us. Rafi, I saw you. There you are. Do you want to say a few words?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Rafi Miller. Rafi or Raphael. I like both. So no pressure there. I'm a restorative justice practitioner down in Southern Oregon, based in Medford. I work for a nonprofit organization called Resolve, where I direct our restorative justice programming. So I've been in the restorative justice field for about 11 years now, doing a lot of work with K-12 education systems and our juvenile justice youth correction systems. So really excited to get involved and learn the ropes. Gratitude in advance for all of your help and support as I find my way through, and really just looking forward to working with you all.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rafi. As I said, Erica wasn't able to join us, but Erica's lives in the Central Oregon area and works at Oregon State University, and is it the Cascades campus? Well, now I'm like, my brain is not working effectively, but I'm pretty sure OSU Cascades. So excited to have Erica on as well. One of the things we need to do, and to be honest, I don't have much to say, but I think let's spend some time on this in December, and that is electing or selecting a vice chair. So I'll just say, I guess out loud, if there is interest, the best way to probably do that is to let me and Robin know of your interest. I don't know if we want to do some other nomination process or something. I'll get the executive committee together after today's meeting. We'll meet in advance of the December meeting, and we can think through kind of a process. But at the very least, I guess my request is that if there's someone who's like really excited and interested in that vice chair role, let me know and let Robin know. In an ideal world, the person who's the vice chair eventually becomes chair, right? So know that if you're signing up for that, you would be the next in line. And then also it's really helpful to have a vice chair for those meeting, facilitating and kind of helping when Robin is not available. So it's an important role for us to get figured out. I think we don't have to do it today, but I think we should by December start to have that figured out. Any questions or comments about that? I see Robin's comment here. Interested in leadership role. So thanks for that comment, Robin. And then just real quickly on some reappointments, we did and have worked with the governor's office on all of these new appointments, but also I know that the following members have worked to get their paperwork and application and all this other stuff in so that we could officially have Eric, Janine, Celeste, Maricela, and Liz all reappointed for another 4-year term. So just wanted to acknowledge those folks for helping to get all that paperwork in and things figured out. So that's the news on the YDC membership. That's pretty much it on that point. I will later on during my director's report, I was going to thank our outgoing members. So I haven't forgotten that piece. Know that we have, sincere thanks to about 5 members who are terming off, and I was going to acknowledge them here a little bit later. I think that's it. Now maybe,
Brian,
yes.
I saw that Andy may have figured out their audio issues. So
Awesome, awesome. Okay, Andy, you're up. Do you want to say a few words?
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Andy Santana May. Currently, I'm a student at Oregon State University and pursuing my bachelor's in business administration. Reluctantly, I found this opportunity through the Hope Partnership Janus Youth Programs branch. And ever since, I've applied, and I've been excited to see what's new out here and see what I can do to contribute towards the Youth Development Council and Youth Development Division. And to me, I'm just here to learn and experience something new. So I'm excited to work with all of you.
Thank you so much, Andy. We are glad to have you and Kiwi, just having that perspective on the council. I know Maricela and Diana, Isa too before, and also Destiny were, are and were important voices. So just appreciate the lived experience and perspective you're bringing to the table, and a willingness to learn along with all of us. It's great. All right. I'm going to move on. Melissa, you're going to have to help me because I'm not seeing, well, maybe am I still up on my committee stuff? Is that what's next?
I think so. I was just going to note that Jeff Parker asked in the chat whether we need to put the council chair appointment to a vote or anything, but we do not. That's actually an appointment by the governor. So we're good to go on that. Thanks for asking, Jeff. And there were just a couple other comments about, sorry, Brian, in the agenda about, I'm still collecting some of your bio statements. I sent out some questions for you all to answer, and we're collating those, and they will likely appear on the website, and we'll share them among the council. So if you haven't gotten those to me yet, it's not too late. Send them my way. Let me know if you need the questions again. I can send them to you. And then just a note that later this month we will be having orientation meetings. I can put the dates of those in. I'll put the dates of those in the chat right now. And they're required for the new members and they're optional for other members. I think there might be some updated things in there. And I think too that it's maybe been more than a year since there was official orientation or onboarding. So if you joined during that last time, it would probably be great to have you attend. And we welcome everyone attending if you're available. Brian, that's all I'm seeing on there. I think tag, you are it.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'll just say on the orientation, as Melissa noted, that the dates and times, you only need to do one of those. You don't need to do each of them. They're just different. They will be each time the same information. And we'll, depending on attendance, if we get all of our new members in the session on the 30th, or kind of see that 12 to 2 or 1 to 3 slot, we might, cancel one of the others, just FYI. We just wanted to give some options so that we could get people into those. Staff are also invited to attend, just at the very least to say hello and introduce themselves, and make sure that each of our council members can kind of put names and faces together. So yeah, be in touch with Melissa about particularly the new members, right, about which of those slots works best for you. And we will organize those with kind of a council or board book with materials that we feel like everybody should have access to. We'll talk about the strategic plan in a little bit more depth, and just talk through expectations and roles, and all those different pieces around the division and the council. So, all right, any questions? we're going to keep it moving here. I'm going to share my screen again and want to talk now about our youth development committees. And again, I shared this information with the executive committee, I don't know, a month or so ago. I don't know if executive committee members have hopefully had a little chance to kind of mull this over, and also sent this PowerPoint out with my update. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at this, but I'll kind of quickly present this information. All right, so just a quick recap for new members and for folks. The council has multiple committees. There's an expectation that each council member be on at least one committee. And yeah, I think there's been a sort of mixed history about how people get on committees, whether you are asked, voluntold, maybe that's the word, and or you have a particular interest or preference. What we're going to do here, and Melissa may note this here in just a few minutes, but we're going to, I'm going to share with you a new structure for our committees. And then what we'll do is put a link in the chat for a poll, like a survey. I think it's going to be a Google or some kind of survey where we're going to ask you to list your top, say 3 committees that you'd like to be a part of. And then we'll take that information in and then do our best to get you on a committee or 2, right? That's based on your preference, but also we do need to kind of get an even distribution of folks on committees, right? And so that's the process that we're gonna pursue to get those committees that I'm just about to describe filled out. So our current committees: Juvenile Justice Committee, Youth Committee, Workforce and Reengagement Committee, Administration and Rules Committee, and the Executive Committee. You see I've noted next to each of these that, 3 of them I think are pretty active and have met fairly consistently over the past year or 2. I know that Administration and Rules was kind of meeting more on an ad hoc basis. I organized 1 meeting of Administration and Rules. Perhaps there were other meetings prior to my coming on, and the Executive Committee I think was also meeting in an ad hoc basis. I will note, just you don't see the Strategic Planning Committee. That was, I think, in the truest sense of the word, an ad hoc committee made up for the strategic plan work specifically, but it that wasn't an ongoing official or named committee of the council. So just keep that in mind. What I'm proposing is that we restructure things a little bit, and following this slide, you'll see some deeper or more detailed descriptions of what each of these committees would do. I'm going to say out loud, I don't know that we need to have a formal vote. We told you that there wasn't going to be a vote on this, so I just would love to, get people's feedback on this. I think based on the work we've done with our strategic plan, based on things that are kind of happening and current, I've based this a lot on the ideas and concepts that I think we've discussed as a group in the past. So hopefully this isn't a surprise, but really organizing around an executive committee, and I'll give a description here in a second, the Juvenile Justice Committee, Youth Committee, a new Equity and Disparity Committee, and then a Policy, Rules, and Research Committee. I note here flexible meeting schedule. I don't want to get into these committees will need to meet on such and such a schedule. I would imagine at least quarterly, but sometimes committees meet on a more of a monthly basis if there's particular work that needs to happen. I think the committees and the members are smart enough and can make some determinations about what the meeting schedule should look like. just a little bit more detail, and then I'll happy to entertain questions and comments. The executive committee would be made up of the chair, the co-chair or vice chair, and then committee chairs. Its role would be essentially to be review and preview YDC meeting agendas, track the strategic plan, serve as the strategic leadership body for the council, help us ensure that we're being consistent with the protocols, procedures, and requirements of the council. And remember that our council is also the State Advisory Group, or SAG, so maintaining some of those requirements. Meet quarterly. That's a strong suggestion, in that I think since we have quarterly meetings, it's really helpful for me to bring the agenda to this body in advance of the meeting and just sort of preview things. So that one I think actually does make sense to meet on a quarterly basis. Any questions about this executive committee description? No, I think
Brian, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So how much does
Hey, Smeedy.
Hey, how are you? I'm sorry.
Good morning.
Where's the deviation from the way in which it was previously structured? Because it looked like I just assumed it was doing most of those things, but
it's the shift to media is actually more that it's just going to meet. I mean, I think we're going to try to make it a more regular occurring active committee. It was from what I was able to gather, I don't think we were actively meeting as an executive committee. Somebody who's got a longer history can say differently, but to me, I think the main thing is more that I having what maybe with my nonprofit experience and other past experience, it's just helpful to have this body and have it meet actually on a more regular committed basis. Does that answer your question, Tabiti?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anything else from anybody on this one? I've got, like I said, the other committees kind of bulleted here so you can see more. I don't see hands or anything, but Melissa, let me know if things are happening in the chat that I can't see. Juvenile Justice Committee, again, current and active committee, was meeting even monthly over the winter and spring, advising on juvenile crime prevention, tribal prevention, and youth justice. Meet and monitor the Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Act, and also state advisory group requirements. I think those things kind of go hand in hand, and I know that this committee brings great perspective in that regard. Monitor, ensure accountability on the county plans and county technical assistance. And then meeting schedule determined by the committee, probably quarterly. But again, the committee, Molly, you've been quite capably chairing this group, and it's a really active committee, so not much changing on this one, frankly. Just I know that this is an important and active group. Any questions there?
Brian, this is Molly. I would just invite when people, we would love to have additional members. So that would, I'll do a shameless plug for our JJ committee, and we meet regularly.
Yep. Thanks, Molly. Well, when we get this poll out, folks can note that as one of their top preferences. Moving on to Youth Committee, again, active, chaired by Maricela. Maricela, really appreciate your chairing this group. Sanji has also been very active in terms of staffing this committee. Seen some just really solid engagement and work over the past several months. This has been a priority for us to kind of make sure that this group is active in meeting, and doing so virtually, right, has its pluses and minuses. But this, with the things laid out in our strategic plan, I think we want to, continue the good work of this committee. You see the things that I've outlined as some of the areas of focus. advising on youth engagement plans, right? And further down, increasing membership on our committee of young people. So this ensure YDC is meeting SAG requirements. That really is that these of the state advisory group, we have to have a minimum of 20% of our council be under 28 years old. I'd like to see us increase the membership of people under 28. That's the federal standard to around 50%. So we'll grow that over time. It's going to take us some time, but we know we have a minimum that I think we're currently meeting, and we just want to continue to grow that. Some other ideas here around co-creating a youth summit in the coming in the current biennium, participating and guiding a mentorship program. Thanks to our youth committee, we're with COVID is, I think, kind of making this happen in fits and starts, but we want to make sure to find opportunities to pair our younger members with more experienced council members, and so we've started that, and we want to make sure that keeps going. And again, the meetings, they've been meeting quarterly, and I imagine that will continue. Any questions on youth committee? Next, equity and disparity committee. This is new. These are some of the things that these bullets are things that I've outlined. We have from NPC. NPC is a research firm that works with us on our juvenile crime prevention analysis, and works with us pretty closely on a number of different research and juvenile justice issues. But they developed last year a set of recommendations around addressing and reducing disparities. And I think that we should make sure to put some attention on those recommendations, and have a group of, or have our committee do what's needed to push those forward and advance them. Again, want to differentiate between what's happening around the racial disparity technical assistance work that Sanji at a staff level will be leading, and that's at the juvenile justice. I mean, there's overlap and connection, but again, my sense is that in a kind of longer term thinking forward kind of way, the recommendations that MPC has provided will be a real important area to focus, weighing in on our strategic plan, communication and outreach, advising on development of an equity statement, an equity lens. We have, I think, a lens from the Oregon Department of Education, but I'm really excited about trying to update it and making it really specific to our youth development work, and then have a committee determine the schedule, probably quarterly, but again, group can decide. Any questions on equity and disparity? This also comes as a recommendation from our strategic plan, so I'm excited to get this moving. And then finally, I'll admit that this committee is, there's a lot here. So it may be that at different points we have some work groups or some subgroups that need to happen. But broadly speaking, I think there's some opportunity for us to all come together around policy and then to have that work be data driven and supported by research. So here are some of the bullets, right? Review and support the implementation of our policy agenda, advise on bill and legislative implementation, right? So the re-engagement work that the Re-engagement and Workforce Committee was doing really was about advising on the implementation of legislation around the re-engagement system. So I think that work can work under this committee. I don't need to read all of this to you, but advise on legislative concepts, support development of rules, also organize around budget and legislative testimony, and then determine a schedule. So again, a lot to think about with this group, but I hope and think as we think more about policy and our strategy, that this makes sense. I mean, it feels like it does to me. Questions on policy and research committee? Zan, I see your hand up, please.
I just have a couple of questions about staffing and chairs. And I know you've mentioned already, and we know that Molly has for a long time chaired the Juvenile Justice Committee, and Anya staffs that, and Maricela and Sanji for the Youth Committee.
Yeah.
For the three committees, do we have a sense for that?
Not yet. I think we need to get the membership organized, and then once we've got those committees organized, I would call on them to determine a chair, maybe either through a volunteer or if there's a nomination process. I will admit I'm not sure exactly how the other chairs were determined in the past, but my 2 cents on that would be that I think that can happen at the committee level. I didn't determine. I probably have some thoughts based on the members once we get that developed.
And the leads, there will be lead staff assigned to each one as well?
Yes, we'll assign a lead staff, and each committee will need to have a chair. Great question. Anything else on that?
I have a question.
Oh, please,
sorry,
please,
Brian.
Liz.
I have a question. On the youth committee, is the intention for the youth committee? I know our youth and young adult members are on there. Is the intention for that to be like sacred space for our youth and young adult members, or are non-youth committee members invited to be on there? I was just thinking about that.
That's a good question. I guess I'd have to think about it for a second. I don't know what. I don't know, Maricela, what are you other members of that committee? What do y'all think?
Can you repeat what she was asking?
Yeah, Kiwi, thanks for jumping in. Yeah, the question is, should I think essentially people who are not youth be on the youth committee? And I think we currently, somebody might need to help me with the membership. I think I think we might have a couple of folks who are not youth on the committee, but I'm not looking at a list. Melissa, you might have to help me.
I mean,
Kiwi, what do you think?
I feel like, of course, I mean, yes, because they can learn a lot from us, and we can also learn a lot from them, and it'd be just like we're hearing it from both perspectives. Someone that's older than 28 and also the youth perspective too. So it's always good to hear both perspectives from someone that's older and younger. So I think yes.
Thank you, Kiwi. Appreciate that. I don't know, Andy, Maricela, I don't know if Diana's on or not, mainly because I just can't scroll through all the faces that quickly.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you, Andy.
Can you see me?
That I can't see you.
Okay, here we go.
There you go.
So with that, like being said, I do feel like with everybody does have a unique perspective, especially working in whatever area they have. Like I know that people who have worked in like the juvenile justice system, they could definitely come from different areas like of the juvenile justice system, such as like mental health or just working with general population, or something like offensive specific. I know that's probably more beneficial to like, I guess, the committee that we're part of, and just having more of a stronger understanding from where they've worked at and the experience they've set. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
So Andy, let me ask you, you think it's those other perspectives are good to have at the table? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Any other? I did see Diana was on the call. I saw when I scrolled through. Diana, I think you're out there.
I am. Sorry, can I have, or do you all mind clarifying? Do you mean, like, for example, me, right? Like I'm 26 now, so technically speaking, I wouldn't be a youth. So is that what it's referring to? Are we referring to like us and like Maricela or?
Well, the federal thing says federal definition is under 28, Diana. So you still,
Okay.
you're still there.
So the question was about like other folks, because usually we don't have, and so would it be like, are we open to that? Sorry,
Yeah.
I just have a lot on my mind and I'm trying to better understand.
Yes, then you got it. Is it are you open? Is the committee membership, should it be open to folks who are, you know, not defined as youth?
Quote unquote youth, yeah. So I totally like support what the last two folks said, and I'm sorry, y'all. Like
that's right, Andy and Kiwi. It's fine.
Andy and Kiwi, there we go. I totally support what they said. I don't think I ever realized until like recently, the last few years, how important mentorship is and how valuable it really is. And so I see it more as like mentorship to even include other folks and bring that perspective and challenge each other. Yes, I echo what they said as well.
Thank you, Diana. That's really helpful. Anybody else? I think we're gonna, I don't know that we're gonna have a final answer. I mean, I feel like I like that the committee in this instance, that they should decide. That's what I think. I think the committee should have that space. We've got staff, you know, we're developing this mentorship piece. So why don't you know, if folks want to if youth committee is something you're interested in, you want to put it on your list, that we can take that into consideration, and then we can also spend a little time with our youth committee members just to kind of confirm where the committee membership ends up going from here.
Brian, may I chime in a little bit?
Of course,
here?
Karen, I see your hand up, I think.
And I love the idea of having the committee decide. And I think something that the committee may want to consider is if they have people who are not youth on the committee, is possibly leaning more towards having the youth members have the leadership positions within the committee, having maybe a bias towards that. So that was one of the things that we have consistently talked about, is giving our youth leadership opportunities. And I know myself, I am used to leading. In the beginning I wasn't, and now I'm used to leading, and I will step in there and sort of take charge, not meaning to trample on somebody else who might be hesitant. So that may be a thing for the committee to talk about as far as its values and its culture and where it wants to go.
Cool. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you for bringing that up, Karen. I was thinking of that too. I'm like, it'd be awesome and cool, but I know we've talked about this in the past, where I believe Sanji brought up a good like motto or phrase that you all learned at a different event, where nothing, what is it? Nothing without
Nothing about us without us.
Yes, that one. And so I think like maybe we can set some like values, intention, and like go back to center that so that we're not in alignment.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think one of the to earlier question, I think, and we can outline some of this, right, as the committees get together, is having some clear like purpose statements with the committees, some clarity about their structure, you know, chair, co-chair, and then maybe any membership, what that looks like, the intentions, right, that Diana's speaking to, and values. I think we could develop without making it too onerous, right? But kind of just a quick statement of purpose, if you will, for each committee, which would be really valuable to ensure that that information like is passed on, and from when 4 years from now we have some new faces and new folks. I think that documentation is as far as I can tell lacking, but it was again identified in our strategic plan to like, let's get these committees aligned, and then have some real clarity of purpose. So we can work on that with the committees. We could come up with kind of like a template, like, hey, each committee fill in the blanks here, and then I think that can help ensure some consistency across them. I'm going to move us forward because I know we don't have a ton more time. Melissa, you may have to remind me where we are, but I'm going to move us, unless there's anything else, to just some other quick notes. Other ad hoc committees and work groups, right? I mentioned at the beginning, like strategic planning has been a ad hoc group, re-engagement and workforce committee. My recommendation is that we integrate that with policy and research. The rules and administrative committee, it's a little bit of a mix, that the rules duties would be assumed by policy and research committee, and then the administrative duties assumed by executive committee. Maybe there are other, maybe I'm missing something. That's the others, which is like, I hope I'm not leaving something out. And we can form ad hoc committees as needed around issues, right? There's nothing preventing us from saying, you know, a few years from now, we should form a, you know, strategic planning group again. But again, I think the strategic planning work, as I noted earlier, would move kind of into that executive committee. And we even will be reporting regularly to the council kind of where things are. So the whole body will be able to hear what's going on. But that tracking and monitoring in a more detailed way would happen at the executive committee. So those are my thoughts about committees. Again, I don't know that we need to take a formal vote. Maybe folks can, like, I don't know, fist to five may be a little bit hard for me to explain here in the moment, but, you know, basically it's like, you know, folks can say like, hey, a 5, I'm, you know, really supportive. A 4, I'm pretty supportive. A 3 might be like, yeah, this sounds okay. But at the point that you're like at 1, 2, or 3, if you're really doing fist to 5 the way it's supposed to be done, you have a critical question that needs an answer before you're going to get to a 4 or 5. So that's the shortest of explanations. Maybe just by indication, I would love to see kind of where folks are with this committee structure. Like, as I said, 5, Brian, makes sense. Let's go. 4, yeah, we probably need to get a little bit more written down or something. 3 is like, I'm still pretty good, but I have a question, and if you have a question, I want to hear it. And then 3 or 1 is, yeah, or 2 or 1 is really like, I'm not supporting this. Could we just do kind of a show for those who are on video? It's going to be helpful. Or if you want to put in the chat where you are with these ideas. Wanted to give this to you at a high level, tried to provide the information in advance too, so you could think about it. That's what I propose. I'm going to stop sharing, or maybe it would be helpful for folks to see those committees. Yeah, in one page, but there they are if you actually want to see what we're looking at. Where are folks? Show me by hands. Okay, I see a 5 up there. I can't see I got to scroll through. If I stop sharing, I can actually see where people are. Okay, I see some 5s. And Robin, I see you. Rafi, Celeste, Liz, Parasa. Good. Seeing it. Oh, hey, 5, good. Go. Sounds like we need to go. Sounds like we did it. Thank you. Really appreciate the input. Melissa, where are we going next?
Well, you had mentioned a survey, which we were going to send out after the meeting, actually, not do it during the meeting.
Okay.
And we're a little bit over time on the committee structure, so we need to decide whether we're going to take a break now and return for Cord's update on the strategic plan, or if we want to just roll right into that, which is about a half an hour presentation. I believe. I'm checking with looking for Cord on the meeting here just to make sure.
Should we keep
I'm here and
rolling since we're
available.
behind? I feel like we may need to keep going because I was blathering. That's my sense.
Got it. So we want to do this. We wanted to get this in before the break.
I think we should, Cord.
All right, let's do it then. Hi
Robin,
everybody.
you cool with that?
Yeah, I'm ready if everyone else is.
Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Great. Well, hi, I'm Cord Bucher, Acting Chief of Staff for Youth Development Division. And if we can have the slideshow back up, I will give you a presentation on the strategic plan and where we're at in implementation. Or should I, Melissa, should I run the slideshow? I can share, yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
why don't you do it?
All right, sorry about that. I will.
Do you have the link?
I do.
Okay.
Let's see, I have so many tabs open. I got to figure out which one. I'm just going to share my screen. There's nothing super exciting except for this presentation. All right. Let's see here. Well, there's the next steps. Sorry, I'm out of order on this. Well, let's back up a little bit. I'm having some glitches with my, there we go. All right, here we go. Looks like we're at the right spot here. So I don't know, can I hide the preview or is this, I don't know if there's like a good way to present this. I actually have not done. Cool, there we go. I usually am just using desktop-based Excel and Word, but I'm trying to really dive in and adopt the web-based versions, but I'm a little bit unpracticed. So looks like we've got it here. Again, hi everyone. Thank you for letting me present this morning. My name is Cord Bucher, and I'm going to talk to you about the Youth Development Strategic Plan Overview and Update. Just to begin with, as we had throughout the strategic planning work, and whenever we talk about this, we're going to go back to the vision and mission of the council and division, which were adopted as part of this process. I will read these two. So the vision is that all of Oregon's youth have the opportunity to thrive and achieve their full potential. And mission is youth development. Well, there's a little bit of a sneak preview of something. Youth Development Oregon aligns systems and invests in communities to ensure equitable and effective services for youth through ages 6 through 24. Throughout Oregon and tribal nations, we support educational and career success, disrupt youth crime and violence, and affirm youth strengths and safety. Values and beliefs, I actually will not read those. I'm going to jump ahead. I shared this document which came out to the council last week, and I wanted to go ahead and just start by talking about this. This is a draft version of something that we wanted to prepare and use as we talk about the status of the strategic plan. This is based on something that the State Board of Education has been using for their strategic plan work. And it just kind of captures some of the high level information. So of course, the vision and mission are there. We actually condensed the values and beliefs into one box here. We realized in looking at it that the values and beliefs actually are generally aligned, that each value has a corresponding belief, with the exception of the belief in anti-racism, which I think is a value in itself. And so we've added that here so that these values kind of encompass both here at the top. And for those of you who are not familiar with the plan, I'm going to walk through some of this in more detail this morning, but what we have here are the three overarching goals that we established in the strategic plan, which are community capacity and justice, youth voice and resilience, and systems alignment and transformation. Each of these goals consisted of a number of different strategies that were developed in the work that the council did with the division. The strategies themselves sometimes consist of a number of different actions or activities that are going to help us carry out that strategy. And then what we have here in this third column is something new, which is we want to be able to see what we're working on in a given period of time here in the strategic plan implementation. And so we've got the 2021-22 initiatives. This is the work that we see going forward between now, really July of 21 through June of 2022. I don't think that this is an exhaustive list, but these are some of the high level activities that the division and the council have either begun work on or will begin work on during the year ahead. I'm going to come back to this at the end just to bring it all back. So you of course have this document and you can refer to it as needed. I'm going to talk a little bit more about those three overarching goals. So systems alignment and transformation, we describe that as the council's work and the division's work to drive systems coordination, create systems change through agency accountability and transparency, and the work on policy, partnerships, and our investment in grant making to really align and transform systems. Youth voice and resilience is about amplifying youth voices and stories and championing a strength-based and science-based approach to youth development through our services, our programs, and our policies. And community capacity and justice is about building relationships and cohesion internally and externally, and applying a lens grounded in equity, relationships, and humility. And I just would note that where we use that term justice, we really are, I think, looking at that equity and humility and the sort of more positive version of justice, not so much about the justice system, but about the ever-bending arc of justice and our work to really be an organization dedicated to justice, as well as community capacity to support young people. So those three overarching goals here, I'm gonna, there's some more information here, but when we talk about the strategies within these goals, this is just a list that kind of captures some of what those strategies look like within these. So when you talk about systems alignment and transformation, the kinds of strategies that we are going to utilize include system change work, legislation and policy work. It's got collaboration, the council's role and structure, accountability on the part of the agency and beyond, continuous improvement, our investment through grant making, and of course research. The youth voice and resilience strategies include broadly things like council recruitment and mentoring, youth engagement, lived experience is a big focus here, strength-based approaches, and whole child development. And finally, when we talk about our community capacity and justice goal, the strategies include a focus on equity and partnerships, collaboration, defining council purpose and collective wisdom, and refocusing and expanding our grant making. So this isn't meant to be an exhaustive list, but just to capture some of the themes within those strategies. So I'm going to pause for a second. I could jump back. If there's any questions about this, I can take a second and let folks ask. Otherwise, I'll provide you with an update on our progress here. Okay, super. So I'm going to talk about the strategic plan progress so far. This is really since the end of the spring when the plan was finalized. I want to give you some examples of the work that has already been done and some of what has been accomplished. I'm going to go through each of the goals and use that as kind of a frame for talking about this work. So within our goal of community capacity and justice, the bold heading there is the strategy, clarify and strengthen the council's purpose and collective wisdom. So actions we have taken include clarifying and communicating the council's role vis-a-vis grant making. Those of you who were involved in the last council meeting may recall we brought forward a new approach to approval of our grants, really shifting to a approval of the process and clarifying the role of the council and the division within the grant awarding. We also, that one with the asterisk is it was not actually a action listed in the original strategic plan, but recruitment of new council members is definitely a facet of this. And so we wanted to note that as of now, we've brought on 5 candidates, including 2 youth members and a new chair. Around aligning the YDC and YDD committee structure with the strategic plan, emergent opportunities and challenges, we wanted to examine the current council structure and develop recommendations for restructuring, and that has been developed and was proposed. You all just got that presentation. Embedding equity, inclusion, love, and anti-racism throughout YDD and YDC. There's a few actions that we have taken. The division has initiated Courageous Conversations series, supporting staff-led conversations on race and equity. Staff members have begun Courageous Friends training with our ODE peers, which is a more intensive training around equity. Equity and Disparity Committee is included in the YDC committee redesign. That notion of a committee focused on this work was elevated as a possible action within the planning, and we have moved forward with that. Strengthening the impact through relationships with communities, agencies, and sovereign nations. One of our actions was to understand and uphold tribal sovereignty through, we've done that through updating our tribal grant agreement. We've taken a few different steps around grant making to try to improve our grants accessibility and attractiveness to tribal nations for them to apply. And through our discussions, we learned that one of the big barriers for tribal governments was that within grant agreements, the state was requiring a waiver of sovereign immunity, which when we understand that tribal sovereignty is something that we want to uphold and is critical, that requirement is somewhat contradictory. And so we explored whether we could get that waiver out of our grant agreements, and we've successfully been able to revise the grant agreement to not include that waiver requirement for the upcoming grants. But moreover, I think that it's generated a broader discussion around this waiver within state contracts and grants across the Department of Education and beyond. I think that may be we may be on the precipice of a bigger shift. So that is something that we feel really good about, and we hope will take us a step closer to really upholding tribal sovereignty. I'm going to go ahead and move on to systems alignment and transformation, the next goal. So one of our strategies was to foster accountability and continuous improvement. And so to carry that work forward, we wanted to develop an implementation timeline and set actions for the strategic plan. And we have done that. There's an implementation timeline and tracker. It's actually, we have it in Smartsheet, so it's something all staff have access to or will. We've been working towards an interactive way of tracking all of this. And we've also implemented through the quarterly staff check-ins and performance evaluations, attention to the goals in the strategic plan, so that as part of staff's focus, in their work and evaluation, the responsibilities include the work within the strategic plan implementation that are assigned to staff members. So really linking our work back to implementation, I think is a big step forward. We wanted to create a virtuous feedback loop for continuous improvement. And there's a couple of ways we're going to do this, but one that has already begun was with our re-engagement grants. In the last biennium, we launched roundtables where we wanted to create space for grantees to bring us feedback and ideas, requests for assistance, and really hear back from our grantees in the shorter turnaround time, their experience with our grants, their experience in the work. Obviously a very challenging time for youth programs to deliver services in general. So giving us a chance to learn from them and them a chance to share with each other. And that's something that we really want to embed, not only in the re-engagement grants, but we hope to really bring this approach to other types of grants as well. Creation of YDD staff performance and evaluation plan. So we've standardized check-in questions. As mentioned, we have embedded strategic plan goals in the evaluation questions and plan, and we've aligned it with the Department of Education's overall evaluation process and tools to just bring more consistency in terms of how we're providing feedback and setting goals. Systems alignment and transformation, 2 pages of each of these. We've actually got a lot already going on. Investing in system alignment and transformation. We have, of course, launched the 21 and 20 to 23 RFA. We've made a lot of refinements to that process, including how we shared information about the RFAs. We've implemented a regional award process, which Paul will talk about when he presents on the RFA later. We, based on feedback we got in those community meetings, looking at how we can create something that is financially more tenable for small organizations, we're going to have a monthly payment process for organizations that need quicker reimbursement. We are going to honor tribal indirect rates, which sometimes are at higher percentages than our standard, our past limit on indirect rates. And we've also, as mentioned, removed the sovereignty waiver for tribal nations. And then the Re-engagement Opportunity Grant has been launched, and we have plans for re-engagement collaborative grants later in the fall. Again, more on that in a bit. Around the JCP formula funds, we have provisional and conditional awards tied to racial and ethnic disparities work and culturally relevant services within the juvenile crime prevention plans. We have, in part because of our budget, been able to increase the awards for juvenile crime prevention formula grants and have made some revisions to the formula for 2021. And I believe there'll be work ongoing around the formula for 2023. And then finally, on the youth voice and resilience goals, strengthening YDC with youth and those with lived experience was a central part of this goal. And here are some of the ways we've done that: dedicating staff member to cultivating relationships and supporting youth members, which, as mentioned, Sanji is working with that committee and around those strategies and actions. Recruiting new youth members. We had 7 recruits identified. We've added 2, which of the 5 new YDC recruits, 40% are youth. Our current goal is to increase youth membership beyond the minimum 20% of the council. And our long-term audacious goal is to reach half of the council membership being youth members. We don't have a date set for that, but it's really part of a vision of having a truly youth-empowered and youth-led council in the long term. Develop and implement a youth and council member onboarding, training, and mentoring process. Council description for prospective new members was created. Mentoring matches began between senior council members and youth members. And I should have actually added this. Now we have council orientation coming up. So a new orientation has been created, and there are those 3 sessions that we hope folks will sign up for, just to provide you with a little bit more background on the work of the council. Also part of this youth voice and resilience goal, championing strength-based whole child development and mental health and well-being. Part of this was developing a communication plan to continue agency identity work and awareness raising. So that plan has been created, the work has begun, and developing a policy and partnership director position to really be the steward of the strategic plan and agency communication work is also underway. The position has been designed, and we're working with HR now to get this put in place. So we'll actually have a role dedicated to the strategic work, the partnerships, policy and communications work that's all outlined within our strategic plan. And with that, I'll take another pause. I'll talk about next steps in a moment, but wanted to answer any questions about the status of the work so far.
I'm not seeing any hands or anything in the chat. Oh, there's one chat. Nope, that's all.
Okay, I'll put this out there, and I'll make sure there's time to if you want to bring up a question at the end of this section of the presentation. If there was something, if you were involved in strategic planning and there was an action or strategy that was really important to you and you haven't seen it talked about, if it's something you feel we should be working on earlier here in the process, that's a huge plan. It's going to take a while to get through, but if there's something you want to call our attention to, please do, because we're really working on a lot of different pieces at the same time. And if there's something critical that you think we might want to turn our attention to, we're happy to hear that. So I'll talk about what we have planned next steps. So communication plan. Right now, we're working with a designer on some branding and identity updates. I'll just say that, there was a bit of an Easter egg earlier in this presentation. One of the things we've been talking about is how, as you can see here on this slide, right now our branding is all centered around the division. For those who've been around for a while, a few years ago, it was all around the council. And we'd really like to have a branding and identity that encompasses both the council and division so that we can talk about our work as a unified whole. There may be times when we need to be more specific, but we'd like to have something that brings everything in. And so that's something we are working with the designer on. And we're also looking at just some of our basic overall logo and look, just to make it a little bit more aligned with our vision right now, what we would like things to, how we like things to appear. So as that gets done, the next step is going to be messaging tools for the council and staff. That included things like some general talking points about our work, but it also includes some of the policy and legislative agenda work that I'll get to in a minute. We're also going to be sharing out our 21 to 23 community investment and re-engagement, pardon the typo, grant awardees, increasing awareness of our impact. So we've had a really tremendous response to this grant application, and we're really excited to talk about how the funds get distributed once we finalize the awardees. And so that's, I think, going to be an opportunity for us, again, to build awareness of the council and division's work. Council committee restructuring, so that member assignment process will get underway. We'll probably need to make some updates to our council procedures manual. 2023 policy and legislative agenda. So draft legislative concepts are actually due in November. I think that's a bit of a soft deadline, but we'll probably want to, for the folks that do want to be a part of the policy committee, hopefully it'll be a time for us to connect before that. As we're beginning that work, we want to get your input and really begin talking about what our policy goals are for the 2023 legislative session. That even though we just finished the 21 session, we need to get started planning for the next full session 2 years from now. So we'll be preparing an agency overview and policy brief for 2022 so that we can have that available for legislators when we have opportunities to speak with them this spring. We have some youth engagement work planned. Obviously, new YDC members will be doing onboarding, mentoring, and there'll be some youth committee projects, no doubt. A youth engagement plan is identified within our strategic plan. I've just noted here that my hope is that that's a youth-driven youth engagement plan. As mentioned earlier, nothing about you without you. We want to make sure that it's not the adults deciding how we engage youth, but it's something that is driven by youth members and program participants, ideally. Something here that wasn't on the radar whenever we were working on the strategic plan, there was a goal in strengthening the YDC with youth and lived experience of exploring how to better support council member participation. And so I've noted here, House Bill 2992 passed. This new law provides a per diem for board and commission members. A qualified member is someone who's not in full-time public service, has adjusted gross income of under $50,000 per year for a single filer or $100,000 for a joint return. And if you are a qualified member, you are eligible to receive the same per diem as a legislator and this is actually going to go into effect in September. My goodness, I thought spell check was on, but it's not. So I can't fix it now, just ignore it. But nonetheless, we will probably in October be getting word out to folks. Again, this is not something you are required to accept, but if you are interested in receiving a per diem for your participation in your council activities, that is something you will be entitled to. I think that right now, the number I saw is around $151 per day. This is based on the GSA standards for per diems, which again, it's what the legislators receive, and the state has determined that members of councils and boards should receive it too. So, so that's going to, I think, be something really beneficial. And then again, initiating and driving system change through agency partnerships, partnership matrix, who we work with, why and how is something we have on the list to develop. And our plan is to be able to update you on this partnership side of our work at the December 2021 council meeting. And so I'm going to go ahead and jump to my last slide, which again is this draft. Call it a placemat. I wasn't sure why they called it that, but it's because to fit all this in, this is actually an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, just to give you a big overview of what we're working on, what's coming up. And one last time, happy to answer questions. Check in the chat. And yeah, I see Celeste's comment. I'm going to guess that that's related to the council stipends. So yeah, that's sort of exciting. Something we didn't have on our radar initially, but we'll be working directly with ODE to model our implementation after the state boards. So more to come on that. And I see Zan's comment here. Yeah, I'd say, we've been busy on this, but what has been, I think, really important, I think to Brian and everyone, is that I think that the curse of strategic plans is that they often are beautiful and end up shelved. Rather than spending a lot of time polishing ours, we really just got to work implementing it. I think that the actual fancy final publication version may come halfway through implementation, because we really wanted to get to work on those actions. There was a lot in there that seemed really urgent and important. It feels really good to have this, this load start to really guide our work. So thank you for that. And thanks, Adrian. And we'll, this slideshow will be available, so you'll be able to go back and kind of, review all this. I know we moved pretty fast to get through it. And there will, of course, be more information coming out. My hope is that once we kind of get our redesign done, that some of the projects we will then have will be to produce, again, publication quality versions of the final strategic plan, as well as this placemat and other tools to really help the council stay locked into what's happening in that plan. And then, of course, the committees will probably be carrying out some of the work in the plan as well as they get going. So with that, I will go ahead and stop and turn it back over.
Thank you, Cord. Thanks. Yeah, we breezed through that pretty quickly. In some ways, kind of a preview for the newer members of the plan. We can, now that you have that, you can think about it. Again, we'll make the PowerPoint available. I think we sent it out prior to today's meeting, but in our onboarding and in orientation meetings, like if you just need some time with it, then we can come back to it when we do that onboarding and orientation. So know that we'll bring this up in those sessions later this month and early October too. All right, yeah, we've covered a lot. I appreciate your patience and willingness. I think we're at a break. We may be about 15 minutes behind, but I think we caught up a little bit. Cord, really appreciate you kind of getting through that. We want to do a little break and then come back to Jaime, who's, I hope, still somewhere in the audience. So should we do just like we had 10 minutes. Maybe we want to do like a 7-minute break until 10:40. Robin, what do you think?
That sounds great. Let's do.
Let's do that. And then there I see you, Jaime. So we'll come back at 10:40. Jaime will tell us a little story, and then we'll jump into Anya and Sanji. So just appreciate y'all. Have a little bio break. Do what you need. Go off screen. See you in a few minutes. All righty, I think we're coming back. Yep, cameras are coming back on. I think we're gonna turn it over, Robin. I think we're gonna turn it over to Jaime. Jaime, I see your face. Jaime's now, yeah, like an outgoing council member. Somehow, though, I don't know if we need to for these outgoing members like an emeritus title, or I don't know, something. We don't want you to go, Jaime, so we keep pulling you back in. But you have a story.
Thank you, Brian. I'm what the Nahuatl would call Nepantla, which means I move in the middle. So I'll always be with you. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. It's I gotta say, it feels a bit strange to be on this side of the conversation after 8 years serving on the council. But I'm so grateful to have one more opportunity, to share a story with you, or like one of my mentors like to say, a nugget of wisdom, But before I go there, I want to do a little bit of an exercise because, it's almost 11. Spend all the time on the screen and it's rough. So help me with some breathing exercises. It'll be short. And maybe a neck roll and a shoulder roll. I'll guide you. So breathing exercises, think of like a baby, pretend you're a baby, right? And just breathe. And breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. In. Breathe out. Maybe a neck roll. Drop your chin. Roll to one side. All the way. And to the other. Does that feel good? Oh, yeah. One more time. Drop your chin all the way down. One side. Other side. Now shoulder roll. So one way. Feel those shoulders. Oh, that stiffness. Yeah. You can feel it, right? That feels good. Let's go the other way now. Oh, yeah. Oh. How does that feel? Yeah. Get to get grounded. There's a popular saying in youth development sector about the importance of helping youth find their voice. You might have heard it, helping youth find their voice. But what about adults finding their voice, their inner child? As Nancy Luna Jimenez, you might be aware of, once said, when we reconnect with our inherent human capacity to heal, we can and will stop the cycle of oppression. And it starts with ending adultism. How about that? Ending adultism. So with that spirit in mind, I offer this story. ¿Quién es esa sombra? Who is that shadow? The curiosity of my little friend Gavino. Dicen por ahí que el aprendizaje mayor comienza con la curiosidad. It's been said that the greatest learning begins with curiosity. So as we continue in our lifetime journey of learning, we must free that child in us. That is what my amiguito Gavino taught me, and the little boy inside me reminded me of. In my village of La Ranas, when I was a little boy, I didn't have electricity, toys, or books. The playground and school was my village. I walked freely exploring each of its corners, observing the people con mucha curiosidad, with much curiosity. One day, I was walking uphill on a slope, with my amiguito Gabino. Boy, was he a curious one. He pointed at everything and pretended to know everything. But he and I were in for a surprise. As we kept walking and the sun began to go down, de repente, suddenly, Gabino looked back, jumped, and screamed, "Mira! ¿Quién es esa sombra? Look, who is that shadow? It's been following us." I stood in shock. "What are you gonna do?" "Let's run away from it," I said. But they continued to follow us. So we stopped again, looked at them closely, and smiled at each other. It was us. Eran nuestras sombras or shadows. We were in awe. We had discovered something. On to the next adventure. Friends at the YDC, don't forget about that child. Es tu sombra. It's your shadow. And with that, my friends, I'll see you around. Much love to you all.
Jaime. I don't want to have to follow Jaime. Robin?
I'm also a bit speechless over here. It was beautiful, Jaime. Thank you.
Yeah. I think next is, need to get to the agenda. Anya, you get to follow.
Yes, so this is so unfair. Robin didn't want to follow Jaime, Brian didn't want to follow Jaime, so who gets to follow Jaime? Anya gets to follow Jaime. But joking aside, thank you, Jaime. And I've known Jaime since he was almost that age that he described in his story. So very proud of you, Jaime. I'm so glad that, and thank you for your service on the council and for everything that you do for the community. That said, I'm not going to make you exercise, but I will try to be as brief as possible because I know we have quite a bit on the agenda. But I did want to give you a little brief update on the state advisory group functions of the Youth Development Council and the Juvenile Crime Prevention. So Melissa, if you don't mind moving the slide next, see, I'm very helpless when it comes to technology, so I'm not taking any chances here. I am counting on Melissa because she knows what she's doing. So just to follow up on what Cord shared with you, we've aligned our 3-year plan, which is a 3-year plan is required by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention of the U.S. Department of Justice, who is our funder. We receive funds from them. So a 3-year plan, it's technically a grant proposal. We get a certain amount of allocation based on the state's population. That's why it's called formula grant, Title II formula grant. In order for us to be eligible to receive, we have to have meet 33 conditions of the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Act. That's why it's so important to have had Ryan in his position and now Lindsay transitioning into it and Sanji in her position, because those between these people, we monitor 4 core requirements of the Act. And it's important to know, because that's why we have a larger group working in the juvenile crime prevention unit, but that's their functions. So that said, provided that we've met all the requirements, and we don't know it yet because our application was submitted to the feds, but we have not received the resolution. So we don't currently know what our status of compliance is, but we assuming that we're fine, this is what we propose to the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. We will do with the money should we receive it. And we align the 3-year plan priorities with the 3 goals that Cord had shared with you in his presentation. So Cord, by the way, you can add this as another accomplishment that we did. We aligned the federal planning with the state strategic plan. And in a way, it's a marriage between state priorities and what's allowable, quote unquote, within the federal money. It kind of varies year to year, from 35 program areas, and PAs here stands for program area, just in case you're wondering. When I was spelling it all out, it was like too long. Anyway, so that's what we tried to do. So goal number 1 was system alignment and transformation, fits within program area delinquency prevention. And our objective is to initiate and drive juvenile justice system change through agency partnership and community relationships by promoting positive youth development model and culturally driven frameworks for supporting youth success. The second goal of youth voice and resilience seems to be fitting with the program area community-based programs and services. So with that, our objective here is to amplify youth voices and champion strengths and science-based approach to youth development, services, programs, policies. And the goal number 3, the community capacity and justice, fits within, well, seemingly it fits with program area alternatives to detention and placement. And our objective here would be to increase system capacity by helping local partners to identify potential racial and ethnic disparities and contributing factors, evaluate and implement strategies to reduce the number of youth of color and indigenous youth referred to the juvenile justice system. So this is the plan in a nutshell. We will keep you posted when we get we're expecting 2 things: a letter of compliance status and then a letter of award for the money. But this is what's been submitted, and that was vetted with the Juvenile Justice Committee, and this is our work. Happy to report. As of right now, there's nothing we can do. We just sit and wait for the feds to say what they think. So thank you. Melissa, and the next slide, please. Oh, unless you have any questions. Were there any? See no hands, hearing no voices. We've moved to this embarrassing slide. I'll tell you why it's here. We had a staff meeting yesterday. I was so impressed by the beautiful maps that my colleagues created, and I was super jealous. So I thought, I will map my own, which I failed miserably. So I couldn't map anything, but what you have here is a visual representation of how, well, sort of visual. It's a visual, but the intent here was to show how the juvenile crime prevention funds, grants are distributed in the state of Oregon. So basically they covered the whole state of Oregon. So each county and each tribe, and this really weird looking picture here. I'm so sorry, but that's the best I could find, like a free download from internet. But it does show where the 9 tribes are located. My hope is to get fancy and next time show you like a fancy map with overlay of things. I know Ryan signed me up for some free license, but hopefully it will work. I know he does magic with his compliance monitoring mapping. Anyway, but magic to come. For now, just know that the juvenile crime prevention grants are administered by the Youth Development Division through intergovernmental agreements, which are now grant agreements, with the 36 county governments and the 9 tribal governments. So it's a government to government relationship covering the whole state. So thank you, Melissa. Let's move from the embarrassing slide to a pretty slide. Now, the pretty slide is this, and this is my last one. There are some training opportunities that I want to make sure you are aware of. The first one was the superhero little adorable child. That's the training announcement by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, which is coming up on November 8th, and it will be virtual. So this would be an opportunity for you to learn about your responsibilities as members of state advisory group. So all the federal requirements will be there. And we will send you links to all of these trainings, but right now, just like making sure that you're aware that they're coming your way. Now, the second one also has hands, and that's a conference which will be hosted by the Coalition for Juvenile Justice. Kiwi is a member of the youth leadership group with the coalition. Very happy, very proud of you, Kiwi. You did a fantastic job at the Youth Summit, by the way. So this one will be in November as well. And it says here that it will be in Louisville, Kentucky. Sadly, it will be online only. So hopefully when the world goes back to like in-person communications, there will be next one there. You're also welcome to attend it. It will require registration, and we will be happy to support your registration. So just let Melissa and me or Brian, just any one of us know that you would be interested in participating. So this one is on racial and ethnic disparities, and it's a national one. And lastly, but not leastly, is the Oregon's Juvenile Department Directors Association virtual conference, and that's coming up shortly. Now, we're proud to consider this conference as a technical assistance to Oregon juvenile justice system on behalf of the Youth Development Council and the Youth Development Division. We had a proposal from the Juvenile Directors Association considered by the Juvenile Justice Committee just recently, and just fabulous group of presenters they have invited, so we're happy to support that. And our own Sanji Moore will be presenting at the conference. And I will pass it on to Sanji because she has an important update for you. But same thing, if you're interested in participating in taking part in the conference, just same thing, let us know and we will be happy to support you with that interest. Anyway, I think I don't want to take any more time because we're kind of running short. So unless you have any questions for me, I will pass it on to Sanjay. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Anya. And my name is Sanji Moore. I'm the Racial and Ethnic Disparities Coordinator for the Youth Development Division. And I will be discussing the technical assistance and training that we will be providing to county juvenile departments who fell under the criteria based on evaluation and assessment of their juvenile crime prevention plans that Anya just made reference to. Melissa, thank you very much in advance for sharing my slides. I appreciate it. And these are the recommendations for technical assistance and training for those county juvenile departments that I worked in collaboration with Brian, Anya, and the Juvenile Justice Committee to propose for you all's approval. Next slide, please. But before I do that, Jaime, I just want to say I had to try to work to keep my makeup together because that was beautiful. And this is not goodbye. I hope it's just until next time. And it resonated with me to remember the child, and I'll just stop there. But thank you so much for that. And also, I just want to say a big shout out to our youth committee, Maricela, Diana, Kiwi, Andy. You all inspire me. And I just want to let you know that. And Diana, I just want to say publicly, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And also just give a shout out to Ryan. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. But I'm also very sad because it's come full circle for us. Ryan was a part of my virtual interview when I interviewed for this position in Arkansas because the interview panel needed technical assistance to get the video connection together. So little did I know that you would become my brother in compliance at that time. And it's been an honor to work with you. You are a brilliant mind, and I look forward to, again, not goodbye, see you next time, and all that's in store for you. Congratulations. And I also just want to say that if you all have mentioned me or asked me a question in the earlier part of this meeting, I am in a training all day and have been trying to multitask, but giving more attention to that training. And they were so gracious to allow me to step away for this presentation. So I wasn't ignoring anyone if I was asked a question or something was referenced to me. I just wanted to mention that. So as we move forward, I just want to reiterate that this is a journey and not a destination. And this is a living process, and it's a growth process for all of us that's involved. And it's an opportunity for growth and to chip away at change and create a culture of equity so that we can allow young people, particularly those who have been disenfranchised and have experienced systemic and institutional oppression because they are youth of color, to have the opportunity to reach their full potential. So always keep that in mind. As Tabidi Lewis, one of our council members, pointed out in our Juvenile Justice Committee meeting, this is about humanity. And as I always like to point out, it's about doing the right thing, not about checking these boxes, but always about doing the right thing and creating a culture of change. And now I will take what Tabidi shared along with me on this journey, that it's about humanity. Next slide, please. I would like for you all to keep in mind that the Juvenile Justice Committee approved this framework, but as a full council, when you consider what I'm sharing, please know that this is an overarching paradigm and there are still details that need to be refined. And we meaning myself and the Juvenile Justice Committee, will be working to refine those details as we move forward. Next slide, please. So as Anya shared in her presentation, in our evaluation of approving the county juvenile departments for their general fund allotment for juvenile crime prevention, some of those counties received an unsatisfactory as it relates particularly to one question on the application, which was in reference to cultural appropriate practices and racial and ethnic disparities reduction and data. And those counties, 6 of them received provisional approval, which means that they must commence technical assistance with the Youth Development Division by December 31st, 2021. And 17 of those counties received needs improvement on the same question, and the Juvenile Justice Committee and full Youth Development Council approved that those 17 counties must commence technical assistance with the Youth Development Division by June 30th of 2022. Next slide, please. In envisioning this framework and process, some collaborators that it would be natural and excellent to work with because of what they bring to the table and their expertise in particular areas and their familiarity with our work include the Oregon Youth Authority Juvenile Justice Information System, because they are our go-to resource for the data that we use to analyze for disparities as it relates to race and ethnicity in the Oregon juvenile justice system. And they also publish every year for each county racial and ethnic disparity reports with county specific data. And so as we move forward in this process, one reoccurring theme is that data is one of the cornerstones of this process. And I want to point out, while I remember, that it is my hope that we also remember that each data point is a human being potentially, and it could be a repeat of that same person. And we hope to have the opportunity to bring their experiences beyond the data so that we know why we are doing this and we remember them. Another organization that I would love to work with, I've had the opportunity to have an initial meeting with, is Kairos PDX, who is a charter school in Portland, and they also do training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Annie E. Casey Foundation, they are known experts in the field of juvenile justice reform, particularly racial and ethnic disparities. And so Brian and Anya have had the opportunity to have conversation with them about what's possible. And I would love the opportunity for them to be a part of this process. And finally, NPC Research, that juvenile crime prevention 3-year plan that Anya referenced, and our juvenile crime analysis that we put together in order to draft that plan was done partly in collaboration with NPC Research. And since they are so familiar with our work and have been excellent at what they offer in their consulting with us, it is my hope again that we would be able to collaborate with them on this. Next slide, please. So here is an estimated timeline and some of the tasks that are associated with getting to a point where we continue to create a culture of equity in juvenile justice across the state of Oregon, particularly for youth of color. Right now, of course, we're in the planning phase, and it is my hope that you all will approve this framework. As Anya stated, I'm honored to be a part of a phenomenal slate of presenters, including Nakia Daniels, who's the Assistant Director of OYA. She's also on a part of the meeting and on our council as a ex officio member, and so many other amazing experts in this field. And I do not consider myself an expert. So I look forward to being a participant in the conference. And we hope that that will be one of the foundational kind of head starts for the counties who are on this journey with us. My presentation will be September 21st. A meet and greet with the county juvenile departments, and that's the opportunity for myself and each county director and any staff that they identify to just have dialogue and conversation about what this process means, why they are a part of the process, for me to learn more about them and their county and their individual needs, and to do a deeper assessment of how we can frame their specific technical assistance for them to explain, whatever thought or work process went into completing their application, provide any additional information that may not have been as apparent and evident in the application. So it's just to, again, just meet and have the opportunity to build a relationship, because that will be very important as we go on this journey. Also begin to reach out to potential collaborators, which has already been done. We've had the opportunity to have an introductory discussion about this with JGIS. And so also, of course, with Kairos PDX. And so that process is beginning. And a part of this, one hope is that we can develop a standard overview document that would be a resource for the county juvenile departments or any stakeholder with just basic information, definitions, resources, tools, an overview of racial and ethnic disparities, a short document that could be a go-to manual if this is passed to another person in the future, or if it in the event that someone might need a refresher. Again, as it states, an overview and resource document to begin drafting that. Into October, we hope to continue the meet and greets, to plan a data walk or training, which I will discuss later in this presentation, to finalize our collaborations and to also finalize what this framework and make it more concrete in how it will be presented. Into November, hope to wrap up the meet and greets, to start hosting the data walks, to actually begin the technical assistance process, and to develop what the YDD would likely offer in the future as far as trainings for racial and ethnic disparities. Into the winter, we will continue the data walks, continue the TA, and continue to develop the YDD trainings. As we move into 2022, continue data walks if necessary, the technical assistance if necessary, begin to evaluate and see how the counties that have already begun the process are doing and just do some check-ins on them. And imagine at some point next year, there will be resubmissions of those JCP plans, and we will begin to review those and finally also execute any YDD offered trainings. Next slide, please. Some of you may already know what a data walk is, but if not, I think the Annie E. Casey Foundation will do a better job at explaining it than myself. So let's take a look at their offering for data walk.
Oh, maybe this will work. Let's try it.
It will. You just press, it's thankfully it came together. If you just press the little arrow button in the center.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully we can hear it. Yay!
To work together to improve outcomes for children and families, people must.
Whoops.
To work together to improve outcomes for children and families, people must know where they're starting from. This knowledge starts with data. Gathering and visually displaying information about the current condition of the children and families is the first step to enabling a group to work together. Taking a data walk to review, discuss, and react to the data develops a common language and shared understanding of the problems the group can work to address. Through the data walk, participants gain awareness about themselves, build relationships with others by understanding similarities and differences in perceptions, experiences, and interpretations, and acknowledging the emotional impact of the information. Look at data to learn about the conditions of well-being of children and families through pictures, data charts, and stories. Better understand the use of data to connect to the targeted result and specific populations of children and families. Identify what data is needed and not yet available. Learn about resources available within the group. Experience the reality of having the best available data, and reach agreement about what data to use to inform strategies and track progress toward improved outcomes. Here's how to design an effective data walk. First, determine the data that will be most relevant and representative of the result you are trying to improve for children and families. In gathering this data, the group should consider the range of information that best reveals the current circumstances of the population, and disaggregate the data wherever possible to reveal disparities. Next, design the meeting to create productive conversations and collaboration. Make it easy to take in and discuss the data by displaying the information for the walk on very large charts. These data should be easy to see from anywhere in the room and arranged so people have the room to walk around together. Label the charts to describe where the information comes from and what years it covers. Display a banner in the front and center of the room with the desired result and population expressed as statements. This is the call to action. It focuses the group on its purpose and serves as the North Star for the work. At the beginning of the meeting, announce the data walk. Ask the group to pair off or form small groups of 3 for the walk. Some people may need gentle encouragement to join with others and begin to take the walk. You may want to design a discussion guide or set of questions to help the pairs and small groups consider what the data tells them and explore their different perceptions and reactions. Encourage people to join with people they do not know well. The mere act of doing a data walk together helps to build relationships. Here are some questions you might include in the data walk discussion guide. What is the current state of the result? What is the current state of the result for different populations? Is everyone faring equally? What do you notice about the connections between the result and available resources? Consider demographics such as race, gender, language, socioeconomics, geography. What data are missing? What would help you better understand the result? How does what you see make you feel? How central is the result to your daily work and life? After the data walk, the facilitator invites a whole group discussion where everyone's reactions and insights are shared and heard. Flip charting these responses helps the group see the range of reactions to the data. Listen for expressions of emotion and tone. Use these cues to encourage people to discuss and work through differences that emerge from the data conversation, and set a foundation for agreeing on the current state for children and families and how to measure improvement in outcomes. The data walk is a great way to begin result-based work. It engages people in building the trust and mutual understanding necessary to adopt a common result and commit to make a measurable improvement by a target date. Data walks can also be used to create accountability conversations or work already in progress. As people walk around the room and review the data about strategy execution, they can assess the progress made and work together to identify how to address barriers and seize opportunities to accelerate progress in achieving their result. Sharing data sets a great foundation and a continuing touchstone for your work. Use data walks often to spark conversations and affirm your group's persistent focus on measurably improving results for children and families. Learn more about data walks and other tools for results-based leadership at www.aecf.org.
Thank you. So in an ideal world, we could do that in person. We could gather in a big room and have all of these beautiful data charts on the wall and do what the moderator suggested, have people break off in pairs. But we know that right now we are actively living through a pandemic, so that may not be possible. So some of the conversations we had about data walk with the Juvenile Justice Committee was, would this be county by county, where we would do a data walk with each applicable county, or would we potentially do them in cohorts, possibly by region or similarities? Or could we still just do it with all of the counties that need to participate? And of course, we know that that likely would have to be done. Next slide, please.
Ooh. Oop, yeah, it's getting there.
Virtually. And again, going back to JJS, we had just a small introductory conversation. And so in my ideal world, we could collaborate with Annie EKC to create this experience. And as we discussed earlier, put a focus on the data and allow it again to be a cornerstone of this work, because this data is not new. These statistics are not new, but we know that unfortunately the disparities for Black, Native American, and now unfortunately beginning for Latin American and Hispanic youth, these disparities are there. And so again, my hope would be able to allow young people with lived experience to be a part of a data walk. But those are conversations that are still ongoing. And these are, things to ponder as we move forward with this process. We had a very robust discussion in the Juvenile Justice Committee meeting, and I look forward to working with the Juvenile Justice Committee members and any Youth Development Council member who would like to join in and be a part of this process. Next slide, please.
Angie, I was hoping to share just a really quick story about data walks and framing from a racial equity perspective.
Sure.
Do that if it takes 2 minutes, or should I pause?
Yes, just 1 second. Melissa, can you just go back to the previous slide, please? Don't want you all to get the answers yet. Sure, go ahead, Celeste.
Okay, great, thanks. Data walks are a really common practice with a lot of government institutions, education providers, to look at what's happening. And one of the common practices is definitely to disaggregate the data to really understand what's happening for populations of students, not just the whole, but everyone, and understanding where there's disparities in a system. I always like to share a story from Portland Public's Gear Up program, because they did a lot of really great work with Roosevelt High School and a data walk. But what they found is that often after looking at the disparities, that questions started to talk about why, and a lot of the adults in the room got into blaming families, or saying families just don't. And when those data walks are structured to look at data and then try and get at the why, but don't necessarily have data on the why, I just think it's a very dangerous situation. The way Gear Up changed, what they did is they started incorporating youth voice specifically into the data. So instead of just looking at graduation rates and educational attainment data, they started asking youth perspective, how do you feel supported? And so youth could say, my family does a tremendous amount from me. I feel disconnected from my teachers, or my peers are really at a place where we are like taking each other down instead of lifting each other up. So they incorporated youth voice in a really powerful way to combat the narrative around blame that the system was engaging in. And I just think that there are some standard practices. I'm hearing how this is created. I think data walks are wonderful, but I also just think that they need to be very intentionally constructed to make sure that youth voice is gotten in. I love that that's what you'd like to do, Sanji, but I thought it might be helpful to share with everyone just, a little story about how the experience can go well or could go awry depending on the framing and the perspective of folks in the room.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Celeste. Greatly appreciate, and that's very insightful to know, and definitely putting a note to reach out to you as we move forward in this process for any input or questions that may come up from your experience. I think this is a good time to see if there are any other thoughts or questions that anyone has before I move on. Okay, so moving on to what the recommendations are for the county juvenile departments. Melissa, next slide, please. So as we had conversations about this process, we decided to break it up into categories. And of course, the Youth Development Division is at the center of the process as we work with and go on this journey with the applicable county juvenile departments. And so in trying to also make sure that we don't overstep our authority or create any undue hardship, and also again tailor this for each individual county. There's a part of it that's standard that applies to everyone, and not even just the counties who receive needs improvement or unsatisfactory, but each of these counties is unique and their needs are unique. So we want to keep that in mind. And another conversation that we had previously is that this is not a punitive process. I like to refer to it as an opportunity for growth. So the things that we felt could be required for the counties and would be needed in order to fulfill the grant agreement to remove the conditional or provisional approval and have full approval would be the participation in the meet and greet. After that, we would schedule a time for each county to meet with me to develop an individualized training. And a part of that process would be creating a SWOT analysis and to determine their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And when we do that, create SMART goals, goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Think that whatever data training or walk that we do would be required as well. In addition to this process, we will require the county juvenile departments to participate in one additional DEI-related training per year, to visit a more diverse county juvenile department, because one conversation that came up with some of the counties who received needs improvement or unsatisfactory was that their population is homogeneous and all or potentially all white. And that's the reality, that's their truth. But one thing that I point out is that just because that's the case today, we know that our demographic is constantly changing in this country. And again, going back to the fact that as public servants and government workers, we should make sure that we are as knowledgeable in this area as possible, that we have all the tools and resources to create cultures of equity within a government agency or municipality, and to just do the right thing. And so in visiting a more diverse county juvenile department, there may be the opportunity to see more of a direct impact on more of a diverse population of youth. And of course, resubmitting the JCP plan. Things that we strongly recommend, again, attending the OJDDA annual conference. The theme of the conference this year is equity at the center, today's choices, tomorrow's impact. And so I think that's such a powerful theme, and one that we know that all of the things that we decide today are going to impact the future. And when we are dealing with youth and their lives and their well-being, we have to make sure that we keep these things in mind. I ask that they also consider revisiting, or consider, the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative, which is established by the Annie E. Casey Foundation. One conversation that was discussed was creating mentorships between more experienced juvenile departments or the counties that received satisfactory or exceptional, because those were the other ratings, and partnering with them on their own terms so that the counties who have room for improvement and opportunities for growth can connect with people in their same shoes and get more insight from them. Again, going back to amplifying youth voice and hearing from the people who live this every day, to host a community forum where they can hear the needs, the issues, the experiences of youth of color and their families, and to have youth representation on these governing bodies as they develop things related to racial and ethnic disparities and diversity, equity, inclusion. And Diana, thank you for reminding us about nothing about us without us. And of course, at the center, the YDD, and responsibility is to draft that overview document, host the data walk in collaboration, possibly with another organization, to put on a DEI training that we host that could potentially be one of those extra trainings that they attend, the ongoing technical assistance, and of course, the evaluation process. So these are things that we felt was a great framework and opportunity for us to really develop. And so next slide, please. Some of the questions that came up during the conversation is what would need to occur in order for a county juvenile department to fulfill their grant agreement and for them to be no longer conditional or provisional, and what does success look like? So again, I open the floor for any discussion or questions about this process. Have to. Okay, I'm reading Jeff's question. Just curious if there is a desire for the last two bullets on the recommended actions would be moved. Jeff, I love your question. And I love your thought. Melissa, can you back up to that slide if it's not too much to ask? My phone is frozen. Are you all still able to hear me? Okay, yes. I see. Yeah. So the last two bullets are host a community forum and youth representation. I will open that up for anyone else to chime in. I agree wholeheartedly, Jeff, that that would be great. But again, we have to make sure that we're balanced in what we are requiring them to do. But I would agree with you, Jeff. Any other thoughts about that?
He's saying put them in required, not in strongly.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I understand. I'm sorry if it wasn't clear that I understand, to move them over to being required. And so again, there was, the conversation about what would be overreaching, overstepping our ability to require. But I love the idea of making that required.
Molly.
So I think there's some framework here and some growth and part of the discussion of how this is moving forward. I think the Juvenile Justice Subcommittee really is looking at what is doable in the timeline and really starting the conversation. I don't think anyone is opposed to those entities looking at the last two bullets, but I think that there's a lot of learning and education and steps that need to occur in partnership with the counties and the tribes that we're walking through this with. And so I really hope that the council looks at this as a long-term relationship that we're building rather than mandates that we're causing. And so I just want to have that as a framework as we're having the dialogue for the recommendations, is that this is what's coming out today. But really, I hope that we're asking for voice for the partners, just like we ask voice for youth and families. I'm super excited about that. But I'm also really hoping that we talk about voice from our partnerships and our you have two people on the council that can speak to this a little bit from a partnership perspective, but that is it. And so well, three actually. Zan, I think, also can speak from a partnership perspective. But I really hope that the council understands that this is the framework and a starting spot that we can move forward rather than mandates that I think are not. Anyway, I think that's where I would like to start. Is I really appreciate Sanji's taken into consideration different voices that she's talked about, and she didn't talk about other groups that she's had engagement and conversation with. And I hope she acknowledges those at some point. And because it really has been something that she's been engaging with different voices. And so, yes, we can require those, but I think we need to think through what are we looking for through the SMART goals, and what are we looking for through potentially the end of the biennium.
Right, and Molly, to address that, as I stated at the very beginning, this is a journey and not a destination, and we are definitely I believe I don't have the grant agreement in front of me, and I don't want to chop up the language, but I believe the intent of the grant agreement for the provisional and conditional counties was that they agreed to engage in this process by the deadline. And so want to make it clear that by December 31st, clearly we wouldn't be requiring the counties who fall into that timeline, provisional counties, to have completed all of this, nor even by June 30th for the conditional counties. I think beginning the process and agreeing to figure out in those individualized training, technical assistance, what works best for them. But I do think that, again, with this being an opportunity for growth, it's okay to have requirements in order to receive the funding. And so I hope that we keep that in mind too, not mandating anything, but our goal here is to create cultures of equity that best serve youth of color, because these disparities have been so persistent in their lives, and also to remind our partners of the humanity. So, I think my question is it unreasonable to ask an entity to have a youth voice? I don't think that is something that would be too much of a burden. I saw another hand, I believe it was Zan, raised.
I just wanted to say that I think that this is a great framework. It looks ambitious to me, and I think that's where we should be. And as you say, it's a journey. We don't have to get there tomorrow. We can't get there tomorrow. I would join Molly in not adding to the required list, because we really don't want to create resistance. We want to create culture change. And a lot of these juvenile departments are tiny. They really have, a couple staff, especially in the sparsely populated counties, or share staff. And so what might seem reasonable to us, especially over here on the west side, is not going to seem reasonable to people that don't have the people capacity. So especially during COVID, it's just a reality. So I think we have to approach it as I like what's in the required box, and I think we need to be bringing people along. And I really appreciate the need, the goal, the desire to center race and ethnicity. And in some places, I think that the conversation will be easier if we also include disability, because one of the things we are seeing in Benton County is that there are an increasing number of kids that have developmental disabilities that are involved in the juvenile system. And I think that that's an easy gateway to get people to understand some of what they're doing and why it doesn't work. So I don't want to dilute anything, but it's just a reality for some communities. So that's it. I'm very supportive. I like this approach, but I wouldn't pile anything more onto the required in the first go round.
Any other thoughts? Thank you, Zan and Molly, for the perspectives that you shared. And Zan, I also want to remind you that in the conversation that we had when the council decided to approve this, is that we definitely want to look at the whole child and other things and factors that create disparities. And I know that because of our strategic plan, and I want to point out, thankfully, the universe is allowing me to remember that everything we do will, of course, align with our strategic plan. And all of those things are a part of our strategic plan, but I also have to defend the work that I do, which is the youth of color. And, I know that we will address the whole child, but in this particular space for this technical assistance, and I'm sure 100% that best practices for youth will be a part of this evidence-based practices, but we need to make sure that we try to address the needs of youth of color in the state, particularly because unfortunately they have gotten the short end of the stick over and over and over again.
Sanji, this is Melissa. I see Dr. Lewis and Nakia have their hands up at least, and we have about 15 minutes left in our meeting as scheduled, and a couple other things to get onto. So I just want to note the time. But Tabidi, if you're ready to go.
I am. Thank you so much. Jeff, I want to thank you. I was in the meetings as Sanji was laying out this framework, and while there are a lot of items, there may seem like a lot of items to add into that, the voice of the youth or the community forum. I hate you took that down because I was actually using it as my talking point, but that's okay. I feel that part of a data walk includes the voice of the individuals whom you are talking about, right? What are the people who are the focus? What do they have to say? So hosting a forum to hear communities of color. So maybe a middle ground might be assistance, like offered by the YDD, assistance, setting up and even cataloging what the people are saying, right? in these spaces so that it does have this holistic dynamic, right? I want to make a quick comment. I remember when I moved to Oregon, and I think this is important, and I just want to give it some perspective when we talk about how ideas get meshed or misunderstood. And Sanji, this is to your point about the focus on youth of color. I was interviewing preschools for my children to attend, Salem, all these different areas, rural, et cetera. And I asked the question of a superintendent, how are you going to deal with diversity? This was in McMinnville, and that person said, well, this is something that the parents need to take up, and it's up to you how you want to deal with that. Okay, no problem. Met with a preschool and said, well, hey, how will you deal with this issue of diversity? My kid is the only, student of color. Same answer from two different places. And the individual running the school said, well, you see this kid over here who has Down syndrome, we would just explain to the kids that your child is different, just like that kid. Another school asked the same question, and the girl was missing part of an arm and said that, so the point of this conflation of, which he was actually right, but it was problematic, of sort of racial disparities to physical disability, because racism is an ongoing systemic disability that's created, but to lodge it in that way. So we actually do have to deal with those issues, but we absolutely do have to deal with the issues that are being placed on the table here. So hopefully I didn't take up too much time, but that would be my recommendation, is how does the YDD help offer the lift to make sure that happens, because I see it as part of a holistic data walk, if you will.
Thank you, Tabiti. I believe Melissa said Nakia had a hand up also.
And I will be really quick. I think one, I want to say, and you all, hopefully you can hear me. I'm in Burns and do not have great signal. So if you all can hear me, I'll continue to speak.
We hear you.
I want to commend, oh, perfect. I want to commend the work of the YDD in general. And thank you, Brian, for ensuring that my calendar was in sync to be here this morning. And also really want to just, I guess, add on, Sanji, to what you've mentioned in terms of the work that you're doing, and specifically targeting youth of color. It can make systems uncomfortable when we do this. It can make people uncomfortable when we do this. And my words to you and to the rest of the YDD team and to all of our partners is, the additional work that needs to get done to focus on youth of color is work that we've not done previously, and certainly not in the way that it's being done currently. And it is going to be additional work, but in order for us to address the persistence of discriminatory actions and disparate treatment of youth of color, it's going to be additional work. So, how we manage that, to be, your point is very well taken. I appreciate, what we'll need to do as partners to be able to support the work, but it will be additional work. And I have to say, it would be easy for us to skate by this or to water down the work and emphasis. But if we do that, it is going to, the disparate treatment and discriminatory actions towards youth of color will persist. The only way to move forward is to make sure that we are centering those youth who are the most vulnerable. And if we're targeting and pointing to the work of youth of color, then we need to do that. And we will figure out how to get it done if that is our goal and if that is our focus. So commending you, Sanji, and the YDD team for the work you're doing. I'm happy to support and continue to support in any way I can.
Thank you, Nakia. Very profound. I appreciate that insight and perspective. And I pass it back to Brian and the meeting. I thank you all for the space and the time. And I think Brian will direct how we move forward from here. And Melissa, will you please save the chat? There's so much amazing conversation happening there, so that we can please reference it after the meeting.
Thank you, Sanji. Yeah, I've been like, also little chats going on about the fact that we're at 9 minutes to the end of our meeting, and Rob and I were kind of going back and forth. I feel like we need about 10 more, maybe 15, minutes of people's time. Sanjay, or sorry, Robin, I see you shaking your head. So we'd like to ask folks to stay on a little longer. I know if you have a 12 o'clock, I get it. Public, we'd ask that we're going to extend the meeting a little bit longer so that we can ensure that there's actually time for public comment. But I see some nodding of heads. Celeste, it looks like I know you got a roll. Jeff, I get it. The thing that I want to just, without further ado, is two things. One, I didn't see this as an item on which we needed to vote. I wanted to get the input. I believe that the details of this are an operational matter that we want your input. That's why we brought it to you. But I don't think we need to vote on it. So it's not about YDC approval. We got your broader approval back in June around this broad strategic direction. But we are committed to bringing this and getting your input because you provided such valuable information. So I feel like we've gotten the input we needed. I want to turn it over quickly to Paul so he can talk a bit about the RFA for the remaining few minutes that some folks who can, stay for the next 5 or 10, and then know that we'll at that 12 o'clock, I'll jump to the quickest of director's report, and then we'll get to public comment. So Paul, I want to turn it to you so folks can get a little bit of the RFA. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Anya. Thank you, Juvenile Justice Committee.
Absolutely, Brian. Thank you. And thank you, Sanjay, for that conversation. It was very engaging and enlightening. So I appreciate the work and the passion that is into it. So I look forward to learning more as we go through that process. Melissa, do you mind sharing the screen? I think we're on slide, oh, perfect. You already had it up, so thank you on it. So I've been asked to do a little bit of youth development RFA update. Cord, if you don't mind jumping on, because I think that first slide is yours around the budget. You can explain that a little bit more detail than I can. So I'll turn it over to Cord.
Thank you, Paul. Hi, this is Cord Bucher again. Yeah, we wanted to just provide you with a quick overview of our grant and aid budget. This is from the legislative approved budget for 2021-23. Just to kind of quickly talk about what we've got here. So our grant funds are divided up into a few different buckets within that budget. So youth re-engagement, you can see the first grant type. We've got the rows showing you the different grant types, and then these columns here kind of tell you which kind of funding is being used in the 21-23 budget. Just for some background. So as folks probably know, the youth re-engagement grant funds come out of the SSA, or the corporate activity tax that funds it. So that program is funded entirely out of that pot of money. And then community investments, you can see here, so Promise Solutions and Workforce Grants, I've clustered those together. They're actually in 2 different buckets within our budget, and probably more within ODE's budgeting system, but we'll just treat them all as one piece for today's discussion. So got about $13.5 million for community investments, excluding the gang grants. I pulled those out because the gang grants have their own rules and their own statutes. And so we want to keep those separate when we talk about community investment funding. And community schools is still there. It's a very small grant fund, but we've been fortunate to continue to receive those dollars. Those were cut in half last biennium. And so you can see a comparison here. This is the prior biennium budget, and I'll talk about the comparison in just a second. And last, juvenile crime prevention. So the general fund dollars here are our state JCP formula funds, which go to counties and tribes. Over here in the federal funds pot, you see this number here. We've had a significant increase in the federal funds, but I just want to point out that this is really spending authority. It's not actually an increase in the federal funds that we've received from the Department of Justice. It's actually giving us the ability within state finance rules to spend money that we have carried over from the 2018 and 19 JJDP grants. So our overall budget for grant and aid has increased a lot. You can see the same lines here in our 2019-21 budget for grants. The changes shown over here on the right. So all of these went up. Re-engagement more than doubled, and that's really because the re-engagement funds were only for 1 year last biennium. Now we have the full 2 year of funding. But community investments increased as part of essentially a regular percentage increase tied to the current service level budget. Our community schools were restored and are increased over the 2-year amount originally set for last biennium. Juvenile crime prevention, there's this $1 million increase, but again, that's really about $700,000 in spending authority for federal funds and about $300,000 in additional state funds for the JCP grants, which are distributed in increased formula grants. Just a note here that there was a pot of money that was used for spending authority in our old budget that got removed. So I just want to note that. So when you're totaling things up, that takes about $250,000 out of the increase. But in total, we're looking at about $5.8 million more in grant and aid for 21-23. If you have additional questions about the budget, feel free to reach out to me. I want to go ahead and let Paul get into the discussion of the RFA.
Awesome. Thank you, Cord. So Melissa, if you want to bump it to the next slide. Yeah, I appreciate, Cord, you kind of doing the breakdown. So the RFA submission breakdown, you'll notice that we have some kind of general totals over there on the right side of that screen. So the 14.3 is a combination of all those funds, and in looking at how we're going to initially award or finally award these funds, that'll be dispersed across the 4 CI grants, or the community investment grants. Then the 8.3 million in re-engagement we're kind of dividing that out, anticipating right around 7 million in re-engagement grants going into this RFA process. So about 80 to 90% will be focused specific on grants, and then 10 to 20% of that will be focused on the re-engagement system. Cord also referenced the collaborative grants later this year, depending on what that looks like, would come out of that 10 to 20%. Another thing that I put on there is a note around those funds. We still have the possibility of doing technical assistance grants from this last biennium. Those were, we found them to be really beneficial to the organizations that took them. They made some great progress, and so we want to kind of leave that on the table as well. So over on the left side, the application summary, you've heard us talk about it a couple times. Hands down, from my understanding, the highest number of applications we've ever had for RFAs. You'll see that I had to push back the timeline a little bit. 60 to 70 more applications really kind of ran the gauntlet on us on the timeline a little bit. But just some breakdown in terms of what that looks like. So the community investment, 226 overall submitted and 203 that passed the initial review. The initial review was really before it went to the evaluators. So looking at the real basic requirements of the grant, the applications met the grant initiative focus, as well as they were eligible entities to apply. And so that was done both through procurement as well as an initial review of several YDD staff in that process. So with that increase of applications, one of the shifts we did allow is that organizations could apply for multiple grants. So you can see there in the community investment, we had 128 separate organizations applying for these grants. So many of them applied for multiple grants within that. And then the grant breakdown per initiative, I know we're tight on time, but you can see there on the right after the slash there is the past initial review. So we had 95 total youth promise go to evaluation, 40 youth workforce, 59 youth solutions, and 9 youth violence and gang prevention. So all in all, we're looking at about a 31.2 million in amounts requested. And so there is going to be quite a few applications that are not awarded, because you can see our top budget there of 14.3 within the community investment side. So where we are in the process right now, we are score tabulating. So I couldn't even tell you where applications are right now, because it goes into this tracking just simply by the application number. So we are in that process of adding numbers. Both Bill and I are in that process right now. So the re-engagement applications submitted, we had a really good turnout with 36 submitted and 33 passing that initial review. There were not any duplicate applicant organizations within those applications submitted. 17 of the organizations also applied for community investment initiatives, and we were anticipating that connection for it. And it's just applied for one or more of those community investment grants. All in all, we're looking at about 6.9 million in total amount requested. So you can see that where those totals are really meeting within the percentages. And so we look forward to see where those final score tabulations come out. Before I jump into the kind of the timeline and process, just want to double check if there's any questions on the submissions and application breakdown. All right, Melissa, if you wouldn't mind, I don't have chat up, so apologize for that. So I'll pull that up too right now so I can actually see it. All right. Okay, So these next couple slides are really around the regional side that Cord referenced earlier as one of our goals. And so just reminding us that we use the Regional Solutions Center locations in both RFAs, both for the CI and re-engagement. We stated that we would award, pending review, the top applicants from each region and then go through a statewide ranking of applications per initiative. And so you can see here, we have pretty good breakdown. Community investment is exciting to say that we have it in every region, with our highest region being the metro area, just under or right at 45% of the applications that were submitted were out of the metro area. So excited to see that we have over 55% of our applications submitted through other regions throughout Oregon. The other second highest region that was submitted for both community investment and re-engagement is the South Valley Mid-Coast. And so you can see that that's down there in kind of at the lower part of the I-5 corridor with 17 and 18% of that, of those applications respectively on that. The next slide kind of really shows the picture of where those applications are. So Melissa, you can see here a huge shout out to Abe. And I think this is what Anya was excited about trying to add. Abe did some technical savvy for us. You can see that there's dots on the screen of where applications were throughout the state. These are based off of their service areas or their service address that they, put into their application. So the blue dots are re-engagement. Again, a lot focused around that metro kind of north west area of Oregon, but you can see it spread out both through the central and southern Oregon realms. And then the red is the community investments. We have those throughout the state within that. And these are, I believe, were all of the submitted applications that have gone through review on that. So we're happy with the distribution in the sense that we've initiated this regional concept. Looking forward to trying to expand it when we do some more processes, because obviously we have some room for growth in some of the other less densely populated areas. So next slide, please. So these next couple slides are just really trying to show you the process and the evaluation where we're at. And so the timeline and process, this first slide is where we've been. And so the RFA application window, we ended up being able to have the community investment open for 45 days. And re-engagement for 51. We had started with our goal of 60, and due to some processing, that was about the max allowance we felt like we could make, but happy with the expanded options with it. We did expand on request from several organizations to expand the due date through Friday, July 16th. And so that added a few extra days and I believe helped some applicants along that. Initial reviews, that was all processed through that last part of July. Evaluator training was about a week long. I think we held about 6 different evaluator training meetings, getting them trained up on the rubric. And then that's when the evaluators' work really began on those 250 or so applications where they did individual evaluator reviews. They used the rubric on their own and did that. And then the last 2 weeks, Bill, Hansel, and myself have been running the evaluator panel tabulation meetings where that's where the team of 3 reviewers get together to ask questions about applications that they reviewed. They're not required to adjust their scores, but they can ask questions or clarifications among the team who reviewed it, and then they submit and finalize all of their final scores. So the evaluation stages, I kind of covered that pretty quickly through it. Again, not thinking I don't need to read all of these, but that initial review, independent review, and then we got everybody together to discuss, and then they finalized the scores. So the next slide shows kind of where we're headed. And so right now, Bill and I are working on the score finalization, and then the team will work on the award determination. So that's in progress. Finished our last tabulation meeting on Monday. Notice and intent to award are headed out mid to late September. And that'll be a day set once we have all of item 6 there taken care of. And then once those intent to award, part of the piece that I wanted to cover is the appeal process. So declined applicants as part of the RFA instruction have 7 days from the date of notice of intent to file a written protest. And we have a process in which they have to follow and submit it to our SPC or a single point of contact. And then YDD will review and provide a written response to any of those that meet those requirements with a written protest within a timely manner. So I'll have more update to that. Obviously, we're not there yet at our December meeting. Then the next step is the grant agreements distributed and executed. And that's a process that's individual to each awardee. And so that does take some time. So you can see that's kind of late September to early November that process will be happening after they receive the intent to award. During that same time, we'll also start the grant negotiation and work plan meetings where YDD staff meet directly with the program staff. And there's a 45-day window once they have signed their grant agreement that we need to meet with them and come to an agreement on the work plan, which is basically just ironing out the details from the application. It's a deliverable that each of our grantees will provide at the beginning of their grants. And so that again will happen between September and November. So just some exciting details around the evaluation panel. We had 42 reviewers. So each reviewer did anywhere from about 15 to, I think our top reviewer was over 35. So we had some amazing volunteers taking on that big task of that. The reviewers and evaluators did include YDD staff. Many of the YDD staff on the call were part of that. ODE staff and other state agency staff, as well as many community volunteers. Just generally, having been a part of the tabulation meeting, we didn't take any specific information around who our evaluators were per se, but they were from public, nonprofit, education, and private sectors throughout Oregon. And I honestly was thoroughly impressed just on the diversity of the evaluators and the panels. It was fun to meet the different perspectives throughout Oregon, and people were excited to be a part of the process and learn about the amazing things that our youth serving organizations throughout Oregon are doing. So with that, I believe am I at the end of the slide there, Melissa? I think so. I see a question in the chat around how many community volunteers. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. We did have more ODE staff. I think, I don't want to quote it too exact, but I think about a third of them were community volunteers, just kind of off the top of my head. Again, I've been looking at a lot of numbers without names, so apologize to Betty. I don't know that right offhand, but that's a great question. And I can get back to you on that for sure. Other questions? I see some other things in the chat. So I'm reading the chat while, and so if people have questions about it, please let me know. Oh, I see Jeff put an update on in terms of time for the Workforce and Reengagement Committee. I thought those numbers looked familiar, Jeff. So thank you for putting that update in the chat. That's from the last round of grants with the Workforce and Reengagement. All right. Brian, I think everybody's quiet, so I do see it. Maybe I'm not sure.
No, I think we're good. I think we're there. I appreciate really everybody. We've been able to kind of keep ourselves more or less on time, and we're going a little long today. Just some real good, robust conversation. Robin, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump to the next piece on my report. I'm going to just keep it short because I think I've been keeping folks in the loop via email. We talked about the committees and committee structure and strategic plan. So I think you all have that. There were just 2 or 3 things that I wanted to make sure were on people's radar. Government reopening, just to update, right, with what's happening around COVID. We had early in the spring and early summer, we were looking at a government reopening around September 1st. That has since been pushed back. A new date has yet to be established, as far as I'm concerned, unless somebody knows something I don't. TBD, thanks for being here. See that you got to go. I'm happy to send some of this stuff that I'm talking about just via email to folks post meeting. So if folks got to chime off, as Robin even indicated earlier, we totally get it, and we'll manage our time a little better next time. But anyway, reopening for buildings is yet to be determined, but we'll let you know when that happens. Know that the Governor Brown has issued a vaccine requirement for state employees, so that's happening. There are some exemptions to that, but we're managing that, and know that for staff do have the ability to go into the building if they need to get something. Face coverings are required. So if for some reason as a council member you need to do something. Sorry, Molly's asking, does that reach the levels of council? You mean the vaccination requirement? As far as I understand it, it does not. I mean, there are some councils and commissioners, council members and commissioners who are paid. And so in those instances, I think that there's that the vaccine requirement may apply. But for the volunteers in our group, at least right now, that vaccine requirement doesn't apply to you. So we continue to work remotely as a team. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to get together and next Monday to just try to meet some folks face to face and send Ryan off. I do want to, as we come to a close here, mention and thank our members who are terming off: John Teague, Alicia Hayes, Isa Dewberry, Jaime Arredondo, Janet Ahrens, Destiny Ortiz, Pamela Abernathy. We appreciate your years of service and steadfast commitment to youth and families from Oregon and the 9 federally recognized tribes. We may see them occasionally, you know, we may pull them in here and there. I think that I know that there's a willingness to serve in kind of a mentorship role, right, for some of our newer and or younger council members. So we don't want our folks to be strangers. So know that. I'm going to note real quickly that we are doing some work internally around our operational structure, just trying to align our operational structure with our strategic plan. So we've started to do that work internally just to make sure that our teams are connected to some of the priorities in the plan. I'm happy to send you more about that in an email. Just rolled that out earlier this week. And then two or three other really quick things just worth mentioning, you know, because, you know, sometimes things have legs. Like I was interviewed by Ed Madison from the University of Oregon School of Journalism for a video on youth development, justice, and Measure 11. Parts of that interview will be included in a podcast series, apparently, that's a companion to a broader television documentary that maybe will end up on OPB. I don't know. The documentary will focus, the documentary piece will focus on the story of 3 incarcerated youth who were incarcerated for Measure 11. And then, you know, the conversation I had with Ed was around broader youth development and brain science and things of that sort. So stay tuned. Nothing's been released yet. I was in touch with Ed, he said that that the podcast and the documentary are on track to be completed by early next month. So happy to share that. And Nakia, yeah, I think Nakia, who sends a note, made the connection between Ed Madison, who's on the faculty there in the School of Journalism. So was happy to be a part of that. Don't forget that we have our December 9th YDC meeting. And I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's probably gonna be online. You know, I know we keep saying that, but we'll get in person eventually. And then the last thing I'll mention too is that just in the vein of like, as things have legs and want to keep you in the loop, the National Empowerment Center, which is a mental health focused organization, asked me to do a presentation around youth policies and practices that drive system transformation and improved youth outcomes. That's probably going to happen in January-ish. It's going to be a webinar. Again, more details to come, but just wanted to give you all a heads up because I may be tapping you on the shoulder for like hearing a preview of the presentation or for some information or data. So that's it from me. I'm going to ask quickly if any committees have any reports, and then we'll move to public comment. Committees, anything really quickly? I know Jeff put a workforce and reengagement update. Molly, I know we've spent a fair amount of time on sort of some of the juvenile justice stuff that was discussed. Marisela, I don't know if you're still here. Anything from committees? I'm not hearing anything. So public comment, actually don't think there is any public comment from Melissa. So unless that's changed, I'm going to turn it over to Robin. Apologies for going 15 minutes over. Appreciate those who were able to stay. Again, though, I think the conversation was robust throughout when we weren't talking at you the whole time. So appreciate everybody. Robin?
Great. So it looks like we're going to shift to the opportunity for public comment. Melissa, do we have anybody who's let you know that they would like to be in the queue?
We do not. Thank you for checking.
All right, so it sounds like there's no need for public comment. Last call. Okay, it looks like there won't be any public comment this time. And I think other than that, let me know if I'm wrong, but I think we can adjourn at this time. Yay. All right, folks, thank you again. I'll just echo what Brian said. I think we had a really robust engagement the entire time. So I know we went over. Thank you for those who have been able to stay on the full time. And really thank you to everyone for all the levels of engagement you've been able to be a part of. Last plug, if you're interested in the vice chair role, please let us know. We're excited to think about rolling forward, especially as we're thinking about this whole committee restructuring. So as that's moving forward, would love to land that vice chair person. And other than that, I think we will adjourn for the day. Again, appreciate everyone, looking forward with our ongoing work. This is a really exciting council to be a part of, I can tell already. So thank you, everyone. Take care of yourselves and one another, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you all.